We're going to learn this Parshas Vayechi this week. We finished all the Maimarim in Torah, Or, and Vayechi. Besides, the Vayechi has got very, very, very amazing Maimarim, and we learned all of them already. In the back, in the Haisafis for Torah Or, means after you finish the Sefer Torah Or, there's Haisafis. Haisafis means additions. So the additions, there's no additions in Torah Or until Parshas Vayechi. Vayechi is the first parsha that has an addition. Just a few parshas. Vayechi has additions, Shmois, and then Yisroel, and then Tetzaveh, Kisisa, Vayakel, and then Megillas Esther. All the rest of the parshas don't have Haisafis. Now there are two Maimarim in the Haisafis of Vayechi, and both of them talk about Yosef, and it's really interesting because Yosef, it's occurring to me now, because I read too much into everything. It's not bad, you're supposed to read into everything. It's like really crazy what I'm just going to say. Okay, it's like, Yosef means an addition. So the two Maimarim, it's amazing, everybody gets a whole bottle of water, a big one. The two Maimarim, that's the advantage of the people that are here over those that are listening online. Sorry, if you're in LA, you have no excuse not to be here. If you're listening everywhere else around the world, okay. You have to get your own bottle of water. Back to what I was saying is that until Parshas Vayechi, there's no Haisafis. Parshas Vayechi, there's Haisafis, and both Haisafis talk about Yosef, and Yosef means Haisafa, means addition. So it's cool. That's really cool. You can go home already. I'm done. I'm satisfied. In any case, we learned those two Maimarim already. So not only did we learn all the Maimarim of Vayechi, but we learned even the additions. So if you didn't listen to all the Maimarim online, there's 3,000 classes on Maayon. And I don't even know if these were posted. Maybe they were. Sadly, there's a lot of classes that haven't been posted. I just haven't gotten to them. They're around, they're laying, we have to find them. In any case, the first Maimer of the additions on Parshas Vayechi has an explanation, has a biur. The second one doesn't have a biur. The first one does. And that's the Maimer, is the only one we didn't learn in Torah. With that, we will conclude Parshas Vayechi. And that's what I want to learn tonight. It's a long discourse, and it's Kabbalistic a little, because remember, we spoke about this many times, that all the explanations on the Maimarim are always far more Kabbalistic than the Maimarim themselves. The classic example that I like to give, which is my own example, I don't know if it's true, but that's what it feels like to me from teaching these Maimarim, is when the Alter Rebbe teaches you a Maimer, he's taking you on a ride in his Ferrari. That feels good? Okay. The Alter Rebbe gives you a ride in his Ferrari. What he does in the biur on the Maimer is he opens up the front hood of the Ferrari and he's explaining you the whole system, how the system works, which is more for an engineer. So the Maimer is like this unbelievable drive in opening you up the Torah in this magnificent way that only Chachmei Allah, only the supernal wisdom of God, which is where the Alter Rebbe's soul comes from, can interpret, can see. This deeper, panimiastic, Torah-dig way of looking at the parsha. Then the Alter Rebbe shows you all the bolts and screws from how it's put together. So he opens you up, he takes you to the Kabbalistic ideas, which are what we might say the underpinnings of the Maimer. That's why the biur is always two things. The biur is more Kabbalistic, and it's harder to learn. Not only that, it's a very long explanation. So what we're going to do is we're not going to attempt to learn it all in 1 week, even though in the good old days when we were comfortable with doing 5-hour classes, we would have made that attempt. But we're not going to do that tonight. We're going to split it in 2 weeks. Half today and half next week. And really, it's all about Yetzias Mitzrayim, and next week is the parsha of Yetzias Mitzrayim, so it really fits well. Parsha Shemois, Golus Mitzrayim, Yetzias Mitzrayim. And then what I want to do in Parshas Ve'era is that there's a unbelievable discourse we learned last year on Parsha Shemois. Incredible Maimer. Last year we learned the Parsha Shemois, which this year I want to do the explanation on that Maimer, and we'll do that Be'ez Hashem Pashas Ve'era. So now that you have the schedule for the next 3 weeks, now we're ready to learn. The Maimer that we're going to learn is Lehavin shoresh kol Hadvarim. It's on Daf Kuv Gimel in Torah Or. And I do want to say, of course, and I make this introduction almost every week because that's the truth. I will say that I started preparing the Maimer this week earlier than I usually do, so that's good. But a Maimer like this deserves at least double the amount of preparation. So I am deficient, but I always know that I hope and I pray that the Eibishter should have mercy on us, that the Maimer should crack open as we're learning it, and that the inner depth and the light and the godliness of the Maimer should flow. The Eibishter's help in the merit of the listenership. So the Maimer is on the word, again, as I said, this is an explanation on another discourse. The original discourse is on the words, Vani Nasati Lach, Shchem Echad Alachecha. This is Yaakov Avinu before his passing, before he blesses all the children, all of his sons. He has a special private time with his very precious son, Yosef, with his favorite son, Yosef. This is when Yosef hears that his father is ill, and he brings his two sons, Ephraim and Menashe. And Yaakov blesses Ephraim and Menashe. You're all familiar with Hamalach Hagoy Eloisi, gives them the blessing. And then after that, Yaakov Avinu says to Yosef, I am giving you a special gift. Those words are, Vani Nasati Lecha, I have given you, Shchem Echad, one extra portion, Alachecha, over your brothers. You get an extra portion over your brothers. Why does he get an extra portion? Because even though Reuven technically is the Bechor, is the firstborn, but in some ways the Bechorah was taken away from Reuven, not regarding everything, but regarding to some things, the Bechorah was taken away from Reuven, it was given to Yosef. As you see that Yosef's tribe became two tribes. The Bechor gets double. Yosef gets two tribes, as opposed to all the other tribes are only one tribe, double portion. So that's the meaning. I am giving you shechem echad, I'm giving you an extra portion. Al achicha, over your brothers. Now, Rashi says, what's that extra portion? So in one pirush, it means extra tribes, that you're the one who your children will be divided into two tribes. Or it means actually the city of Shechem. So Shechem would mean two things. Shechem would mean, I am giving you an extra portion, because Shechem means a portion. And Shechem also means the city of Shechem. And you put the two together. What's your extra portion that I am giving you? I'm giving you the city of Shechem. And in what sense do we see that Yosef got the city of Shechem? We know that Yosef is buried in Shechem. When they brought Yosef's bones up from Mitzrayim, they buried him in Shechem. Because that's the portion that Yaakov gave him to be his. We find that today's days they're still messing with Yosef. This week they found some kind, I think, a pipe bomb by Yosef's caver. In other words, they feel that Yosef, we're going to learn in the Maayon, we're going to see that Yosef is in charge of really, 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 really bankrupting the Klippa. It's an awesome Maayon. Yosef is in charge of putting them out of business. That's why he went down to Mitzrayim. Ancient Egypt was this incredible, powerful kingdom. It was like the greatest kingdom of ancient times. They were wealthy, they were powerful, they had so much energy. Yosef went down to Mitzrayim to end that and to bring the energy into holiness. And that's really what happens in all the exiles. So, but Yosef is the chief person here. That could be the reason why they're always busy with Yosef's caver. They're in what they call nabulas, because they feel that Yosef is putting an end to them. So Yaakov says, I'm giving you this extra portion, alachecha, over your brothers, which is the city of Shechem. And Yaakov says, Asher lokachti, that I have taken that city. How did I get it? How am I giving it to you? Because I've conquered it. Asher lokachti miyada Amori. I took it from the Amorites. How? B'charbi ubekashti, with my sword and with my bow. So Rashi says it means that when after the sons of Yaakov, Shimon and Levi massacred the peoples of Shechem, so then the nations around there gathered together to wage war against Yaakov. And Yaakov went out and fought them. And then he fought them, defending his family, and in that he completed the conquest of Shechem. So he says now to Yosef, I have taken that land with my sword and with my bow and arrow, and now I'm giving it to you. So the Alter Rebbe explains over here in this mimer the internal meaning of this whole idea. That Yosef gets the extra portion of Shechem, which is what Yaakov took with his bow and his arrow. And the Rebbe is going to explain how this is a job for each and every one of us. As Chassidus always opens up, Chassidus strips away the externalities of every story, and you get to the soul of it. And when you get to the soul of it, then it becomes more about ideas than about people. And then once it's about ideas, not about people, then you can apply it to yourself as well. Once it's limited to a certain time and space of something that happened way back then to a certain person, it's kind of stuck. It's stuck in the time and in the framework of where the Torah says it. And then you say, okay, you can emulate Yosef, you can learn something from him, but it's not really a story about you, it's a story about way back then. But when you take it out from its chitzonius, from the physical figures, and you release its energy, you uncover the energy, the content, that's timeless and spaceless. And then you can realize how it applies to each and every one of us. And that's what the Alter Rebbe is going to explain over here. What's this avoda of taking Shechem? It means each and every one of us has this work to take Shechem from the Amorites. And how do we take it? With our sword and with our bow. With our spiritual sword and with our spiritual bow. Which is very, very important, because if we want to end the Galus, we need to do this work. And the main, let me just give you the main idea, just quick, just one thought. This is going to be mainly the part that we're going to learn next week. We're not even going to learn this week. But the main part that we're going to discuss, and it's in the following class, is that the main power of Galus, of the whole exile and so on and so forth, comes from what we call Yenikas Achitzonim. It's that the extraneous forces of unholiness, the klipa, the forces of evil and darkness, they are deriving too much energy from Hashem. They are taking access, life flow. And that's what's making them so power. And as a result of that, they have control in the world. And the world is dominated by evil people. So in order to change things around, we have to, as we said earlier, we have to cut them off. We have to chop them down. The Gemara says that if someone says Kriya Shema Shalamita, it's an interesting Gemara. Gemara says Masechtas Brachas. This is the importance of saying the Shema, the bedtime Shema. It's usually a time when we're exhausted, we're tired, all we can think of just popping into bed. And the last thing we want to do is say the bedtime Shema. In Hasidism, bedtime Shema is like the most important. And the reason is because the Gemara says anybody that says the Shema on his bed, he's like holding a double-edged sword in his hand. A double-edged sword. Now, why is that inspiring? That when you're saying the Shema in your bed, you're holding a double-edged sword. Simply on the Gemara it is because when you sleep, there is a danger of shadim. There is a danger of demons that might, come around to chas v'shalom, try to harm a person when he's asleep. So you're creating you're holding a double-edged sword, and by holding that sword, you kind of assure that these demons will leave you alone when you're sleeping. So that's inspirational, maybe. Okay. But most of us aren't that afraid of demons because we haven't encountered them in a while. Thank God. So what's this whole business? But we know that it means spiritually as well. As a result, chas v'shalom, of general sins and dark things in the world, there are demonic forces, but also particularly the missteps that we do when we chas v'shalom do an avera, or things that we've done wrong, even when we're young, even when we're very young, and we've done things we shouldn't do. That avera gives life to the klippas. We sustain, we give energy to the klippa. And that creates these demonic forces. They might not harm us physically, but they harm us terribly spiritually. And we don't even know when we're sleeping at night that these entities come and peck at our soul and injure. So we need to clean. We have to make sure that these klippas don't have any power. So what do? We take the double-edged sword. By saying the Shema, we cut them off with a double-edged sword. Okay. What's the significance of a double-edged sword? What do you need a double-edged sword? You need a sword. A double-edged sword means that it has it's a sword and it has two blades. So why would you need a sword with two blades? Because when you have to cut something in two places with one swipe, if it's a double-edged sword, you can do one swipe and chop off two heads. So spiritually, what does that mean? So the Rebbe is going to develop the idea that the klippas, the whole power of the unholy, derive their energy from two places. One is at the very, very bottom of the system. They take from the very end of the system, from the very bottom. We might say from the very big, very end of the flow of divine blessing and energy and life force to the world. At the bottom, there is certain leaks. And from the leak of the drainage, excessive drainage that leaks at the bottom, these parasites come and they get their energy. But that gives them power, but they're not that strong. The real power and might of the klippa is they go to the very fountainhead, the very, very, very beginning of the system. They go to the pre-system. They try to circumvent the system to begin with. They have such chutzpah and they have such arrogance that they rise up above the entire channel. So it comes out an interesting thing. From the middle of the channel, once the energy is being channeled through a certain system, they can't get. So they don't have access to. So they have access all the way at the bottom, or they can kind of cheat the whole system by going to the pre-system. In other words, going to God himself before God gets involved in a whole system of creation, and from there stealing energy. It's almost like, getting to the person before the game begins and get a handout before the game even started. So you don't have to play by the rules because the game didn't even start. It's like there's a game and I'll give you an example. I'm making up that just came to me right now. The candies that are given based on everybody who scores points in the game. So the big rich guy comes and he sits with his candies, and all the kids are lining up and they're going to play the game and so on and so forth. But while they're setting up and they're still bringing things in the game, haven't even started yet, this kid comes over and he's friends with the guy, and the guy gives him one or two candies. That means pre-system, pre kind of thing. And that's where the klippa goes. They go to the pre-system. And from there is when they get from there, they get from a very high place. And from there, they get an enormous amount of energy. And that's why you need a double-edged sword. Because when you need to cut them down, you need to chop them down. You need to chop them down from the top, and you have to chop them down from the bottom. In two places of Yanikas HaKlippa, from above the whole thing and from below the whole thing. This avoda of cutting from below and cutting from above, we're going to see is the avoda of Yosef and the Shvatim. The Shvatim, they were the ones who were cutting the klipa down from below, at the bottom. They stop the flow of energy at the very bottom and prevent, they clog the holes. They prevent klipa from getting at the very bottom. Because the Shvatim are, in general, they're stationed on a way below Yosef. Their spiritual quality of soul is like unbelievably inferior to Yosef. Yosef's neshama stops the leakage of the klipa at the very tippy top of the whole system. And the reason why is because Yosef his neshama is so high, so beyond theirs. The Rebbe is going to explain that's the reason why they didn't even recognize him. If he's superior to them, why didn't they recognize that he's a bigger tzaddik to them? So the Rebbe is going to explain that's because he wasn't just a bigger tzaddik than them. He was completely not in their league. He was so, I'm saying the opposite. They were completely not in his league at all. So when you're in the same league and you have someone who plays better than you, you appreciate it. But when there is someone in a whole different realm, they had no clue in who he was. Because his level of neshama is like beyond. Them and their highest achievements, we're going to see soon in the Maimer, from where they would rise to their highest spiritual achievements. For Yosef to be at that level, Yosef had to descend, a tremendous descent, to come down to the place where they would reach on their highest ascent. In other words, it's like if you say someone on the level where you are on Yom Kippur, your highest peak, the level that you are on Yom Kippur, well, this tzaddik, on the lowest day of the year, when he's in a real fall, that's when he's in that level. You hear? This tzaddik, when he's in his lowest, darkest moment, he's in the same level where this is like your highest moment of your life. That's where Yosef compares to the Shvat. And therefore, this kind of what we might call, Yosef and the Shvatim are both technicians. And these technicians have to stop the flow of the klipa, of the unholy. But they're technicians all the way at the bottom, and Yosef is a technician all the way at the top. Now that will bring us back to the pasuk, where it says, "I am giving you Shechem echad al achecha." So first of all, your portion is above your brothers. That means whatever repairs they're going to be doing, they're repairing. We're soon going to see that Shechem has to do with repair. So whatever repair they are doing, you're going to be doing an equivalent kind of a repair, but on an infinitely higher level of repairing. You're the technician at the very, very tippy top. That's what he means. I am giving you Shechem alachach. Well, one more thing we need to understand is what does that have to do with Shechem? So one thing we didn't discuss is we said that Shechem is a portion, Shechem is a city, but Shechem means one thing as well. Shechem. What's a Shechem? Shoulders. That's the Shechem. What's the shoulder? The shoulder is the place where the back of the person meets the front of the person. Shoulder is the place where you have a front, you have a back, and the Shechem is the... So if you're going to bring about a transitioning from the back to the front, that's called the avoda of the shoulder. Klippas are all the backside of creation. They're the hindside. They're what God doesn't like. They exist in His world, but they're unimportant. We need them for a certain project, but they're undesirable. And that's why they're the back. Fixing the klippas, which means taking the energy out of the klippa, means taking the energy out of the back and bringing it to the front. That's why the brothers also have an avoda in Shechem. That's why we also know that their brothers went down to shepherd their flocks b'Shechem. What does Yaakov say to Yosef when he sends them out, his brothers? Hinei achecha royim b'Shechem. Because that was the avoda of the Shvatim. The avoda of the Shvatim is to take the energy out of the klippa and bring it into Kedusha. We find them doing that when the first time Yosef has a dream. What's his dream? He sees that the brothers are all sheaving sheaves, basada in the field. What's the idea of sheaving sheaves? It means collecting sparks. That's what sheaving sheaves is. Why? Because sheaving sheaves means you're taking grains, where these grains are all scattered. They're all scattered all around, and they're disconnected from each other. And you're taking the sheaves and you're bringing them together, and you're putting a string around them. So you're making from the many, you're making one bundle. Well, that's the whole concept of Sitra Achra. What's Sitra Achra? What's the other side? The other side is where everything is. It's called Rishus Harabim. It's everything is plural. Everything lives for itself. There isn't one common purpose to creation, to existence. Everybody's in it for themselves. That's the world of the hind. That's the back. I'm using different terms, but it brings out the same idea. Back and front brings out what God is interested in is the front. What God is not interested, the chitzoni is the back. Another example for that, what's in the front? The front is what recognizes and acknowledges the Eibishter's unity, surrenders to Hashem. That's called Rishus HaYachid. The front is the private domain, and the back is the public domain. So what did we say earlier? What is the job of the Shvatim? They have to bring from the back to the front. In other words, they have to bring from the public domain to the private domain. In other words, they have to unify. They have to take things out of the Sitra Achra. For example, let's give an example in our lives. A Jew. A Jew is all about taking all the fragmented things in this world and putting one thread around it. That everything you do during the day should be directed with one thing, to serve Hashem. So you're gathering all these scattered crumbs, putting it together to oneness. So it's taking from the back and bringing it to the front, into the Echad. That's why they're going. So where did Yosef dream? Where his brother? Not dream. What did Yaakov say to his brothers? To Yosef, go, because your brothers are grazing with their flocks in Shechem. Because Shechem is the place, the junction, where you move things from the back to the front. That's why they're in Shechem. But let's go back to the moment of the story with the sheaves. Everybody's sheaving sheaves. But after they finish sheaving sheaves, what happens? All their sheaves, his sheave, Yosef's sheaves, gets up in the middle of theirs, and they all bow down to him. What does that mean? That after they finish elevating their elevations, they have to bring it to Yosef, and he has to re-elevate it. Same idea like we said before, that Yosef is way above them. And the place where they finish, Yosef takes over on a much, much higher level. So similar to that idea, Yaakov says to Yosef, you're also going to work b'Shechem. You're also going to bring from the back to the front. Shechem is the shoulder. Your avoid is also in the Shechem. But your Shechem is a much higher Shechem than their Shechem. Their Shechem is on a much lower place in creation, from the Chitzonius to the Pnimius. You're going to be working in the beginnings, in the deepest levels of Ein Sof, directing the energy from God's back to God's front. You're going to, what that really means is, I'm just going to show you very briefly, the tikkun that Yosef has to do is that Yosef has to bring the Eibishter to be interested in Torah and mitzvahs. The reason why the Klippas are able to get extra energy is when the Eibishter is in a state of withdrawal into himself. When God is being super introverted and very, very much absorbed in himself, in his deep self. He's not that involved, so to speak, in creation, so to speak, in the project of creation. So then he doesn't really have a strong desire for mitzvahs and for good. So it's like anything. So the energy flows everywhere. Yosef's avoda is to bring the Eibishter from being in a chitzoniistic state into a pneumistic state. That Hashem should say, I desire. What do I want? I really want Torah and mitzvahs. And when that happens, once Hashem wants something wants holiness and goodness, then he rejects that which is klipa and not holy, and then the klipas lose their ability to receive from the very, very top. Let's go back to the kid. Let's go back to the guy, the big candy guys. Let's go back to the it's a silly example, but it's a pretty good example. I don't know why I'm liking it. I'm seeing it. This is very wealthy guy. He has his big bags of candies. And he's going to play with the kids, but they're more interested than he is. So he sits down by the park bench there, and he's sitting with his candies. And the game didn't start yet. So you can have these kids who come over, and it's usually the bullies who come over, because the other kids, they want to play the game, they want to do the right thing. But these guys who like to steal, they just want to get. They come over, and they're already friends with him. He's giving them the candies. So as long as he's not that interested in the game, he can continue giving these candies. But then you need to have someone who's going to get him excited about playing the game. Once he's playing the game, then he gets into it. And if someone comes to him and wants to cheat and get a candy, not when he earns it, he gets really upset at him. Get out of here. Did you win? Do you deserve it? But he has to get into that place. He has to be internal. So you need someone that pulls his interest into that we're going to play the game now, and we have certain rules and the earnings and points, and that's when you get candies. That's Yosef. Yosef is the one who gets the Eibishter into the game. And if the Eibishter is not in the game, he created a world, but the project of creation and the purpose of creation is not so exciting and vivid. And why? Because the Eibishter is like that rich man who couldn't care less about the game, because the game is meaningless. To someone like that, who cares about the game? But really he does care. It's just that right now it's not in the front of his consciousness. So you have to inspire him that should be his conscience. And that means that you have to get the Eibishter you have to move the energy from the Shechem, from the back of the Eibishter's desire to the front. That's a much higher work, on a much, much, much infinitely higher level than where the brothers are working. The brothers are working all the way down at the bottom. And Yosef is doing the tikkun at the very, very infinite heights. The beginnings, above Atzilus, above the Esespheros. In Keser, in the crown, is where he's directing that it shouldn't go to the Chitzonius, it should go to the Pnimius. That's a general overview of the Maimer. Once we get that, now we can learn inside. Okay, so we start. Lehavin shoresh kol hadvarim anal. To understand the shoresh of all the above mentioned things. We first need to understand shoresh in Yosef HaShvatim. The shoresh and the root of Yosef and the Shvatim, mahem, what are they? Mavur b'kizvei Arizal is explained in the writings of the Arizal. The Shvatim mibchenas ha'atzilos. The Shvatim, we know that let me make a little introduction. In addition, just small, tiny, that Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, we know, represent they are the Merkava, they are the chariot. And what does it mean? They are personifications of the Sfirot, of the attributes. So Avram is Chesed, Yitzchak is Gevura, and Yaakov is Teferes. So therefore, and where are these Sfiros manifest first? In the world of Atzilus. So that means that Avram's Neshama is from Atzilus, Yitzchak's and Yaakov are from Atzilus. The Shvatim in the next generation. So they're after the Avos, they're on the lower level from the Avos. So if the Avos are the Sfiros of Atzilus, the Shvatim, they're already in Olam Habriya, in the world of creation. So Atzilus is the world of emanation, is still godly. And Briya is already creation. The Shvatim are in creation. But we can't say they are inherently creations, because then they wouldn't be Jewish. Jews are not inherently creations. Inherently, we are godly. We are from Atzilus. So what does it mean then that they are in Bria? It means as Atzilus, the energies manifest in Bria. Because really inherently the Shvatim are from Atzilus. They're the children of the Aves. What he's going to explain is the meaning of the word Shevet. Shevet means an offshoot. So if they're an offshoot, they're like a branch. The tree is Atzilus. These are branches. Now a branch comes from the tree, but it extends at a distance farther out from the tree. So even though the Shvatim are rooted in Atzilus, and therefore they have certain powers from Atzilus, which are divine, but still their consciousness, their present day-to-day consciousness is one of Bria, because they're lower down into the world of Bria, which means that the Shvatim did not have, you couldn't say about them that they are divine. Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were divine beings. They channeled, they had no ego at all, they were just perfectly unified with the Eibishter. The Shvatim already had a little bit of a disconnect. They had a little bit of a self. Very, very, very vague. Very, very tiny. But they were already Shvatim. They were already something in Bria. But they're from Atzilus coming down into Bria to do a certain tikkun in Bria, as we're going to see. The Shvatim, so it says in the Kisvi Arizal, the Shvatim mebchinas Atzilus. The Shvatim are from Atzilus, shemeir bebria, but that is shining in the world of Bria. Their neshamas are illuminating from Atzilus into Bria. In which level of Bria? In the deepest, highest point of Olam HaBria. Because the Shvatim are still Shvatim. Shiftei Ka, Shvatim. But Behechal Kodesh Kadeshim. In Bria, there's many Hechalos, there's many chambers. The highest chamber that there is in Bria is Kodesh HaKadashim. So they are in the Kodesh HaKadashim of the world of Bria. What's the point of Kodesh HaKadashim? So let's understand it from Kodesh HaKadashim that we know. The Kodesh HaKadashim in the Beis HaMikdash was the point of contact where God can rest. In the Aron on the Kodesh HaKadashim. In other words, so what's Kodesh HaKadashim? Kodesh HaKadashim is the place where two worlds meet, where the higher godly meets. So when we say that they are from the Heichal Kodesh Kadashim from Bria, they're the connecting point between Bria and Atzilus, the Shvatim. The Nikraim, and therefore they are called Merkava. They're also a chariot, but they're Merkava Tata. They're the lower chariot. They're not like the Avos that are called the higher chariot. The Avos are called Merkava Yalah, the higher Merkava, and they're called Merkava Tata, the lower chariot. This is what it says in Zohar Be'inyan Yud Beis Bakar. So the Zohar says that the Shvatim are connected to another illustration that we have for the Shvatim. In the Beis HaMikdash, Shlomo Melech, when he built the Beis HaMikdash, had a special display outside of the Beis HaMikdash. It was a huge, I think it was made out of copper, a huge bronze, either gold or bronze, I'm not sure what it was, but it was either one, it wasn't silver, it was either bronze or gold, and it was a bowl, a huge bowl, and it was called Yam Shel Shlomo, it was called the Sea of Shlomo. It's called the sea, even though it was just a limited bowl, but it was called the Sea of Shlomo. It was filled with water. Beneath it, this is in the courtyard. When you go into it didn't exist in the second Beis HaMikdash. When in the first Beis HaMikdash they had it. This big, huge bronze copper bowl. And beneath it were attached 12 cattle. How were the 12 cattle? 3 on each side of it. So there's 4 directions. So 3 on each. 4 times 3 is 12. So these 3 cattle, what did this represent? So the Zohar says like this. The hashpah, the flow from God to the world, the Beis HaMikdash is set up to facilitate the divine, right, Hashem. So the flow from the Eibishter to the world is that it goes through the 10 spheres. And we know that the Kalim of the Beis HaMikdash are the various different spheres. The Orain represents the Chachma, Chabad, and then the menorah, the shulchan. These are all different spheres. Mizbeach. So in the courtyard, finally, after the spheres, the attributes, the energy now has to translate to the next world, to the actual creation. This is Atzilus. This is still godliness. But then it's coming into the world of creation. So we know the hashpah to creation comes from Malchus. Malchus is the Shechina. That's the last and final stage. Now Malchus is a lot of times compared to a sea, a water, a body of water. That's why the sea that the Jewish people crossed, give me a minute here. That's why the sea that the Jewish people crossed was called Yam Suf. You ever wonder why it's called Yam Suf? Simply it's because it's the sea of reeds. Suf means a reed. But there's a deeper meaning. The reason why it's called Yam Suf is because Suf comes from the word Saif. It's the sea that's the end of all levels. Yam, it's the sea. Saif. And then comes Saifa the Kol Dargin, comes the end of all levels. That's the sea. So Malchus is the last level. Now when Malchus comes and which all the energy flows from the higher spheres into that sea, all the rivers flow into the sea, into Malchus. And then Malchus begins to give life down lower. We know the first recipients are the Merkava. Who are the Merkava? The chariot. These are the highest Malachim. There's the lower chariot, not the higher chariot. This is the lower chariot, which are the Malachim. There's a lion, there is an ox. And what they really mean is the highest angels that there are. They receive first. But they're divided into 12. There are 4 camps of Malachim, which each camp is divided, has 3 parts to it. 3 groups to it. It's exactly like, what else was set up that way? Where else do you have camps of 4 and each one is divided by 3? When the Jews were in the Midbar, you have the same thing. The Golim, when they carried the Mishkan, you had 4 camps of tribes, each 4 main flags, and each one had 3 Shvatim in them. It's around. So in Beis Shlomo Melech, you had that. You had the Yam and you had the Bakar. What did that represent? It's the flow of energy from God beginning to differentiate as it's coming down into the creation, to the 4 directions, to the different aspects of creation. So just like it is with the Malachim, with these Yam Shel Shloimeh, and it's 12, so the Shvatim correspond to that. That's why he's saying that the Shvatim are below Malchus. Malchus is Shechina. That's where the divine ends and creation begins. So that's what he's saying. That's the highest point in Olam HaBriya. That's why it's the Kodesh HaKadoshim of the world of Bria. It's the highest point. It's where they're facilitating and receiving the flow of life coming from the Shechina first into them. Regarding the 12 cattle. That the sea, which is the Shechina, which is the energy of Malchus, stands above them. Dahainu, as he explains. Malchus da Atzilus, Malchus of the world of Atzilus. Anikra, which is called Yam Ilah, which is called the supernal Yam, the supernal sea. Roichev Aleim, rides upon them. Veheim Daled Degolim, and these are the 4 flags, the 4 banners, Ki Yedua, which we saw in the Midbar. In the Midbar, the Jews were set up exactly the way they are set up above. As it is known, so we were in that same setup. This is the Shvatim. That's the 12 Shvatim. Ach Yosef, he's not part of them. He's way above them. His neshama was not Olam Habriya. Their neshamas are from Olam Habriya that is carrying the light of Atzilus. But Yosef is from Atzilus itself. Now again, let's remember that. They're also from Atzilus. But they are consciously manifesting in Bria. Even though their shoresh is in Atzilus, but they themselves are in Bria. Yosef, he himself is in Atzilus. He's from Atzilus itself. Migufa di ilana. He's from the he's not from the branches of the tree, he's from the very tree itself. That means he's from the spheres of Atzilus itself. P'chinas Yesod. He's above Malchus. He's the level of Yesod. They're below Malchus, the creations receiving from the Shekhinah. He's not even part of Malchus, he's above Malchus. He's from Yesod, which is infinitely higher than Malchus. And that's where his neshama is from. And therefore he's also Merkava, he's also a chariot. But he's not the lower chariot, which means a creation chariot. That is a creation that's a chariot to the divine. But he's part of the supernal chariot, to the inner part, to the midos. Because Yesod is makabel from the midos, so he becomes a chariot to those midos, to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. He's the chariot of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And Lach Amar, and therefore he says, Hasachas Elokim. One of the things Yosef says to the brothers, when they thought that he's going to punish them, after Yaakov Avinu passed away, this week in the parsha, after Yaakov passed away, the brothers got very scared, and they thought Yosef is going to, they thought that it's payback day, that Yosef was now going to punish them. So they come and they plead with Yosef, that they say to him that Yaakov instructed that you should forgive us. Before he passed away, Yaakov instructed you should forgive us. So Yosef says to them, I can't harm you. Am I playing God? It's God's business to do whatever he's doing. I'm not going to punish you. I'm not in place of God. Now take a look how Chassidus looks so much deeper. Simple meaning, am I God? I can't, it's God's business. So according to the simple meaning, Yosef is much lower than Elokim. Am I Elokim? Am I in God's place? Do I play God? The deeper meaning, what is Yosef saying? What did we say earlier? Where do they receive the Shvatim? There is Malchus, the Shekhinah, and they're all creations receiving from the Shekhinah. That's what they are, the Shvatim. They are like the Yud Beis Bakar receiving from the Shekhinah. Now, one of the names of the Shekhinah is which name of Hashem? Two names. Aleph, Daled, Nun, Yud, Adna. Shekhinah is called Aleph, Daled, Nun. Adon, Maloshin, Master. Shekhinah is also the name of Elokim. Elokim is also Malchus. Comes out that what's their level of the Shvatim? They are Tachas Elokim. They are beneath Elokim. You get it? If Shekhinah is Elokim, and the Shekhinah is like the bowl of water, and what's beneath the bowl of water, receiving from the bowl of water, the 12 cattle. That's the 12 Shvatim. So they are Tachas Elokim. They are beneath Elokim. But Yosef is not deriving energy from the Shekhinah. Quite on the contrary. He's the one channeling life to the Shekhinah. He's enlivening the Shekhinah in a sense. Because he is Yesod. Yesod gives the energy to Malchus. So he says to them, Hatachas Elokim anoich, am I like you that's beneath Elokim? I'm above Elokim. It's the same pirush that Chassidus gives. It says about Moshe Rabbeinu that he was Ish Elokim. Simply it means, he's not Elokim. He's only Ish Elokim. I love Chassidus because he's not Elokim, he's only Ish Elokim. Comes Chassidus and says, what are you talking about? Ish Elokim, he's the husband for Elokim. He's the provider for Elokim. Elokim is his wife. He's mashpia energy to Elokim. That's a Rebbe. He's mashpia to Elokim. What are you saying? You learn these things, you'll start appreciating what means a tzaddik, what means these people that they're human, but they're not even human. They're just physical examples for the divine in this world. It's a whole different thing. And Lakach Amar, so that's why Yosef says, Atachas Elokim, am I beneath Elokim like you? Okay. Now, V'yesh Lav, we need to understand, if he was so much higher than them, Lama lo hikiruhu, why didn't they recognize him? B'malasei hagvaya, Why? If he was so much greater than them, why didn't they recognize him in his great, great, great quality of who he was? Since he was a chariot. So you say it takes one to know one. They were also chariots. So since he's a chariot and they're a chariot, they should recognize that he's also, they thought that Yosef was an Egyptian. And how do they think of him that he's much lower than them? First of all, they thought of him as he's an Egyptian. But even way back there in his father's house, when he was kind of trying to put them in their place, they hated him. They were envious of him. They didn't understand him. The explanation of the matter is as follows. So the reason why they didn't get who he was, as the Rebbe is going to explain, is because he wasn't just greater than them, he was infinitely greater than them. And because he's so much greater than them, they had no clue in his greatness. So they couldn't, because they couldn't fathom his greatness, they missed it completely. So they saw him just as a human being. They just did not get, meaning they saw him just, because they couldn't tap into his pneumius, they only saw his chitzonius. And the chitzonius without the pneumius, so what is he? They knew their pneumius. They looked at him and they couldn't fathom his pneumius. So what did they see? Nothing. So, liyois, an explanation of the matter is liyois. Ki inyan hashvatim u'maloshen hamshach. So let's take a look at the word shvatim. Shevet comes from the word a branch. A branch is a shevet. By the way, the reason why the shvatim are called shvatim is because we have the Jewish people, we have Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, they're the tree, and the shvatim are the branches that branch off all the different. So that's Maloshan Amshach, it's drawing. What's a branch? A branch is a drawing of the tree. Another example, Kamoy Koichva de Shavit. When you have a flying star, and it makes a streak in the sky, that's called also Koichva, the sages use the word Koichva de Shavit, because it creates a streak, like a branch. It's something that's being drawn from a high place to a low place. Just like branches from a tree, the branches are not considered of the body of the tree itself. Mamish, literally part of the tree. But you can't say it's not part of the tree. A branch is still part of the tree. It's a small chelik. Hanimshach lahala, that is drawn forward, farther away, b'merchak, at a distance, megufa shel ilan, from the body of the tree, lamata la'aretz, down to the earth. I guess he's talking about branches that are like, we're used to seeing most branches going up, but branches that are like bending down to the earth. But their beginning, yoinkim and agufa dilan, but their beginning, which means the place where they're attached to the tree, they are yonik. They derive their energy from the goof of the ilan, from the body of the tree. The soifam, but they extend, and their end yored mata goes down below, to the point that sometimes you have branches where the end of the branch touches the ground, ad la'aretz, all the way to the earth. So it's similar to that shooting star that, as we said before, gives a streak in the sky. That descends or falls, looks like a falling star. And it goes to a distance. The same will also be understood. Yuvin, the shoresh nishmas hashvatim, the root of the neshama of the shvatim, who ba'atzilus atzmoi, is an atzilus itself. As we said earlier, the roish of it, the beginning of it, is part of the tree. So it's the beginning of the shvatim is an atzilus. Hanikra b'shem ilana, which is atzilus, is called the tree. Kedu, as it is known, the Eitz HaChaim, the tree of life, is the Spherois of Atzilus, that's the tree of life. Until Malchus is already the tree of knowledge. But until Malchus, the tree of life. Good. So that's the tree, that's part of Atzilus. But they emanate from there, but they are actualized in a lower world in Bria. But they are like those branches on Imshachim, v'yordim mata, that are drawn and descend downward, tahainu leheyer b'bria, which means in order to illuminate in the world of bria. V'zeu inyan yud beis bakar, and this is the idea of the 12 cattle. Shahayam oimed aleim, which the sea stands upon them. Momayla, from above. Pirish, what does that mean? Where does Atzilus end? Atzilus ends with that sea. Yam Suf, remember? It's the Soif, it's the end. Pirish ha'or rasa Atzilus. But then, they connect to the sea. That means that they're connected to that Atzilus state. Pirish ha'or rasa Atzilus b'chiburam im abriya. The attachment of Atzilus with the world of Bria. Nikra b'shem markava tata. The attaching, the rays of Atzilus as it's being attached in the world of Bria, that's called b'shem markava tata, the lower chariot. Shem malchus da Atzilus atzma oimed. Malchus of Atzilus itself stands above them, and they're the chariot for Malchus of Atzilus. V'zeu inyan, but here he doesn't say it so clearly. There's another version of this mimer, written by Rav Moshe, the son of the Alter Rebbe. And that is, I'm sitting in the year Tavkuf Samach Gimel, Sefer Memorim Tavkuf Samach Gimel. Over there, the words are a little different, and they're a little easier to understand. And over there, he elucidates, he explains that the job of the Merkava is actually to, what does a Merkava do? A Merkava is a chariot that carries the rider. So actually, the Shechina, which is the one who's rochev on the Merkava, she's riding on the Merkava, the bakar, the cattle, which in this case are the Shvatim, carry the Shechina upward. What does that mean? The Shechina descends down to create the lower worlds. But in that process of descending, she got chas v'sholem, can get stuck. She can fall. So there has to be powerful malachim that continuously raise the Shechina back up to reconnect to their source. Tatzilus. It says every night the Shechina rises back up to her source. Who carries the Shechina? So there's the Merkava, the chariot, but the Pnimius of the chariot are the 12 Shvatim. 12 Shvatim carry. Now how do they have the koyach to carry the Shechina upward? If they're creations, how do they have the power to carry the Shechina upward? And the answer is, because we said earlier, even though they find themselves within creation, they're not really creations, because really they're rooted in Atzilus, the children of the Avos. As we said earlier, they're branches, which the other end is in Atzilus. Since in essence they are from Atzilus, they're able to raise the Shechina up back to Atzilus. When the Shechina descends, the Shechina kind of disconnects from Atzilus. She goes down. They remain attached. They're like branches. But they're at the bottom, and they're here to lift the Shechina up. What does that mean? Let me just translate that into a reality. The Shvatim are really us. We're all part of the Shvatim. So we're the Jewish people, we're Shvatim. The Shechina comes down in the world and the Shechina is stuck. What's an example? You encounter a potato. The potato was stuck. Why is the potato? Now, you should know that in the potato is a spark of the Shechina. But the potato can't actualize that spark on its own. The potato is helpless. There's nothing the potato can do to actualize that spark, which means to reconnect that spark to Achdus Hashem. Why is that spark not in a state of God's unity? The very notion that that potato could be used, right, to make non-kosher fries, and a Jew chas v'sholem would eat it, it means against God's will, is a sign that the potato is in a state of disconnect, and it can't help itself. So even though there's a spark of Shechina there, spark of the divine, it can't go up. But the Jew, who is a creation, that's why you find yourself down here in this world, you can take that potato and elevate the Shechina. You can rise, pick that Shechina back up to Atzilus, into unity. By what? By making a bracha and eating it with the right intention. Now how are you able, now here's the thing, if we're also in creation, and the potato can't actualize, come back into oneness, how come you're able to come back into oneness and project that oneness into the potato? The answer is, because even though we find ourselves in creation, we still have a Wi-Fi, we still have a channel to be on. Our neshama still has that if we daven and we meditate and we bring ourselves to that, Shema Yisroel, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, we have it in us to experience, to recognize, and to know, Einoid Movade, there's nothing but Hashem, and Hashem is the only reality. In other words, we have it somewhere deep, deep in our subconsciousness. We still have Atzilus awareness, because that's where we really come from, even though we don't live in Atzilus. Because if we would live in Atzilus, we would be in the state of oneness with Hashem all day long. We don't, me and you, find ourselves most of the day in a state of disconnect, in a state of our own physical, earthly desires and wants. We're in Bria consciousness. We're not in Atzilus consciousness. I mean, at least in Bria. We're not even in Bria. We're in Klipa consciousness most of the time. In Yetzirah and Asiya, and over there in Klipa consciousness. But still, at any moment, here's the thing, at any moment that we want, even when we're in the middle of Klipa, at any moment we can take something of the world and elevate it by thinking what? Oh, Hashem Echad, I'm making a bracha now, I'm connecting this to the Eibush, I want to serve Hashem, whatever it is, we can elevate. Why? Because you're a shevet. Me and you, we're all shvatim. We're all strings coming from Atzilus down into this world, and we can lift the Shekhinah up back in Atzilus, and that's our job. Our job is to connect Bria to Atzilus. In other words, to connect the Shekhinah back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Shekhinah comes down into the world to connect her back to her husband, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In other words, to connect Adna to Havaya. What's the name of the Shekhinah? We said before Elokim. Another name of the Shekhinah is Aleph Daled Nun Yud. Our job is, or the Shvatim's job is, to elevate Adna into Havaya. Havaya is godly manifestation in Atzilus. Havaya Echad. From the level of Havaya, Hashem is Echad. There's none but Him. From the level of Adna, there's a creation, and there's possible to be klippas and all kinds of stuff. What's our avoda? To elevate Adna in Havaya, which is to make the yichud of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the Shekhinah. So that's what the Shvatim are doing. They're elevating the Shekhinah. Oh, v'zeh inyan, and this is the idea of shiluv Adna b'Havaya. That's what the Shvatim have to do. They have to take Adna, which is the Shekhinah, and elevate the Shekhinah b'Havaya into Yud Kei Vav Kei, into Atzilus. Pirish, what does that mean? Kashem mizbateles habriya ma'atzmusa. When Bria becomes nullified from her independence, from her separateness, from being Bria, hamugbeles, that is limited, v'hoisa bechinas merkava, and then it becomes a chariot to Atzilus, to something higher. Kedugmas ha'anofim, like the branch lagaba gufa dilana. It's like the branches reconnecting to the body of the tree itself. Azai, then in that state, to inyan shiluv Adna b'Havaya. The elements of creation which come from the name Adna become absorbed in Yud Kei Vav Kei. V'hainu ha'ares Atzilus, and that's the idea of the shine of Atzilus. Beheichal kodesh kadeshim dikiyadua. Kodesh kadeshim is where creation meets beyond creation, where creation meets the divine, and that's our avoda. Our avoda is to constantly, every day, to go into the kodesh hakadoshim. With what? With a big sack, or a big bundle in our bag of all the stuff that were once part of creation, and we assimilate it and bring it into holiness and into godliness. That's part of what we said earlier. Ma'almim alumim, sheaving sheaves. That's what we're all doing all day. Basada in the field. That's our avodah, to do all this. Basada actually is Malchus. Malchus is called the field. She's called the sea. She's also called the field. This is the avodah, connecting Bria to Atzilus. We're going to see soon that that's called working in Shechem. Shechem is the shoulder that connects the back, taking the nitzutze kedusha from the back, from a state of klipa, from a state of fragmentation, from separation, and bringing it to the front, bringing it into achdus. That's the avodah of the shvat. V'zehu, and that's why we say in davening, when we speak about the shvatim, we say v'zehu shesham olu shvatim. What's the main avodah of the shvatim? Is aliyah. Our job is elevating things from the low world and elevating it higher, which on the greater scale it means elevating the Shekhinah. But where are we elevating? We're elevating from Bria to Atzilus. So tomorrow in davening, not tomorrow, Shabbos in davening, we're going to say, Samachti ba'omrim li beis Hashem nelech, Oim daisay ragleinu b'sharach Yerushalayim, Yerushalayim abnuya, ke'ir shechubra la yachtov, a city that's attached. Shesham alu shvatim, over there the shvatim rise. That means that the avodah of the shvatim is to rise. From where? From their manifest state back to their source. From a state of Yud Beis Bakar, 12 cattle, to a state of oneness, back in Atzilus. Shesham alu shvatim. The shvatim have to go up from Adna into Havaya. They go up, back to the body of the tree, in order for them to evoke the name of Havaya. When you bring sparks up from the world into Havaya, from Adna into Havaya, if you're reconnecting, you're evoking Hashpa the other way as well. You're evoking Havaya to give light down, because Hashem enjoys when we bring sparks up. That creates that flow, extra gilui of Havaya into the world. And this is a great aliyah to them. There's no comparison between the main branch, between the main trunk of the tree to the little branches. So when they rise from Bria into Atzilus, they're going into the trunk of the tree. It's like the branches are being reabsorbed in the tree. And that's a huge elevation to become part of the tree of life. That means the tree, the essence of the divine. That's their elevation, and they can't go, and that's like, once they reach that, they've reached the epitome of elevation. The Rebbe wants to draw the contrast between Yosef and the Shvatim. What does it say by Yosef? The Yosef Hurad. Yosef was lower down. You see? See the difference? Shvatim oilim. Shesham olu shvatim. Shvatim are going up. Yosef Hurad. Yosef is going down. So it says by, for example, Rashi says a few weeks ago, Parshas Vayechi, by Timnasa, by Yehud and Tamar. So Rashi says that sometimes it says that Timnasa, it said by Yehuda that he was oile Timnasa, he was going up to Timnasa. By Shimshon Agibur it says he was going down to Timnasa, something like that. So Rashi says you go down to Timnasa, you go up to it. So Rashi says it's in a slope of a mountain. So if you're at the bottom, so you're going up to Timnasa. If you're at the top, you're going down to Timnasa. So that's the same story over here with Yosef. Havaya is where all the Shvatim rise to. They're going from Adna, Hatachas Elokim, they're beneath Elokim. Elokim and Adna is like kind of the same level. They're going from beneath and they're rising up to Havaya. Yosef is way above Havaya. He's way above Yud Kei Vav Kei. Yosef's neshama is rooted in Hashem's light prior to any letters. There's no letters even in Yosef. Yosef is higher than Yud Kei, even than the Yud. He's higher than all the letters. He's rooted in the Ein Sof, higher than any letters, higher than any names we're going to see soon. Yosef is beyond Hashem's names. He's from the essence of the divine, not from the names of Hashem. For Yosef to come down, for Yosef to come into the spherois and to the attributes of Havaya, he needs to lower himself down to Havaya. For him, it's considered Mitzrayim Havaya. It's considered constriction. The Yosef Hurad, Shesham Olu Shvatim. So what for them? Remember I said earlier, what for them is their highest aliyah is for him as a yerida. That's why they have no recognition in his level. And by the way, I want to say something. Because we have to realize that these things are real not only back then, it's real in today's days as well. You have a Jewish people and you have a lot of Gedolei Yisroel. You have Gedolei Yisroel. You have great leaders of the Jewish people. And when we are just trying to be very nice and politically correct, and very, very beautiful, nice. So we want to say, everybody's wonderful, everybody's great. And that's true. I have no problem with that. But sometimes there is a tzaddik in the world that's like head and shoulders above everybody else. Not stam, but like beyond. And some people have complaints and they say, but how come all the Gedolim didn't hold of him? Or how come? If he is so great, why? The Rebbe says this himself about the previous Rebbe. The Rebbe says that he recognized his brothers, but they didn't recognize him. The Rebbe says, the Friedrich Rebbe's name is Yosef. The Rebbe says about that his colleagues, the other tzaddikim in the generation, they had no idea of his greatness. Why? Because his greatness is so high that they had nothing even to measure with. It's on a complete different level. So when you have sometimes like it's not in the same ballpark. It's completely out of different Indian. You see it with Yosef and the brothers. And when you're zoiche to know such a tzaddik and to recognize him, it's a big privilege. It's a very big privilege. Because you can have a generation that's blind and doesn't see it. From Yidden, don't see it. And when you're zoiche to know the tzaddik that's like, shh. And I mean, obviously, if you can't say open your eyes because some people don't open their eyes. But if you learn and you see, you begin to see. It's like a different takadir. Not to make away anybody else, but it's not making anybody smaller. It's just recognizing that sometimes there's someone who's like just. And the fact that the Shvatim, anybody greater than the Shvatim, Shiftei Ka, they had no clue who Yosef was. They felt he deserved to die. They sold him as a slave. That tells you all. Aval Yosef, as he says over here, Yosef Hurad, Yosef went down. Yosef, because the level of Yosef, Sharsha, his root, Yesod the Adam Kadmon. He's rooted in the Yesod element of Adam Kadmon, of primordial man. Now, by the way, their root of the Shvatim is also in Adam Kadmon. In a higher level, we said they're rooted in Atzilus, but in a higher level, they're rooted in Adam Kadmon too. But they're rooted in the Malchus of Adam Kadmon. And he's rooted in the Yesod of Adam Kadmon. And the difference between Yesod of Adam Kadmon and Malchus of Adam Kadmon is an absolute difference. Yesod of Adam Kadmon is the essence of God, and Malchus of Adam Kadmon is God as he is a source for creation. And the difference between being a source to the creation and the essence of the Eibishter is Ein Sof. There's no end to how far they are apart. Kamashi is bound, like will be explained so. And he's from the light of the emanator of Atzilus. He's not even from the Kalim, from the vessels of Atzilus. He's from the very light itself of the emanator. The flow of energy that's flowing through the Kalim, Yosef is from the very essence of that light. Atzmai. Hanikra Gufa Dilan, it's called the body of the tree. Ki Yosef al Shem, because the name Yosef is, the Medrash says, that the name Yosef is referring to Yosef Hashem Shenis Yadai. That Hashem is going to a second time, when Mashiach will come, Hashem is going to stretch out his hand a second time to take us back. And that's why Yosef is. It's the second time. It's amazing how the Rebbe would point to the Friedrich Rebbe. The Rebbe would always say, Yosef Hashem Shenis Yadai. Know that who you're dealing with when you say Yosef Yitzchak, the previous Rebbe. Yosef Hashem Shenis Yadai. This is the Eibishter stretching out his hand the second time to bring the ultimate Geula through the previous Rebbe. Yosef Hashem Shenis Yadai. This is not just a person. We're dealing with an extension of the Eibishter's hand, again, Shenis Yadai. Now it could be he's hinting to the idea of why he's bringing this pasuk, Yosef Hashem Shenis Yadai, is because later he's going to give a mystical, a Kabbalistic idea about where Yosef shoresh is. He's going to say, he brings this lashon, that he's from Mitzcha, brings it over here, hold it. Shem ma hachodosh de mitzcha da'ak. He's going to use the term. And let me just give a short little thing. In the process of creation, there were two main players, two main energies emanating from God. One of them is the Oireis, is everybody's familiar with the concept of emanations of Hashem that didn't last. That's Oireis the Tayu, the world of Tayu, which shattered. And then the Eibishter re-emanated light called from Olam HaTikun. So the second emanation, which is from Olam HaTikun, even though it's, in the end, it becomes very, very narrow and very small, but in its quintessential beginning, it's a very deep light. And that's called Shem Ma HaChodosh, the Numa, the second light. And that's where Yosef is rooted in. The very quintessential of that second light, beginning of it. So that could be the reason why he's referring Yosef Hashem Shenis Yada. It's Hashem stretching Shenis the second time. The first emanation was the emanation of Oires the Toyo. That was what collapsed. The Kalim, the Toyo, and all that. The whole Toyo emanation didn't last. So that's the first one. Yosef is related to Olam HaTikun, to the second. He's an extension of Yaakov, and we know Yaakov is Baal Olam HaTikun. And therefore, that could be the reason why it's Yosef Hashem Shenis. That's all that I thought. Al-Kay, Legabe HaMatzel, compared to the Matzel, to the emanator, Yerida Gedoyla, for him it's a Yerida Gedoyla, because the Matzel, the emanator, doesn't have any letters in his name, doesn't have any name. He's beyond all names, because he's beyond all description. To him, it's a tremendous descent. Elov Likaros B'Shem Havaya. For him, it's a tremendous descent to be called Havaya, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. Like it will be explained soon. That's why they didn't recognize him at all. There's no erech, there's no comparison at all. That which is an elevation for them, who yerida etzloi, is to Yosef, it's a yerida, it's a descent. The level that they went up to Havaya. For them, it's an extraordinary elevation to come to Yud Kei Vav Kei, to the guf of Atzilus. For Yosef HaTzadik, it's a descent, because he's part of the light of the emanator himself. Going down into Kalim, going even into Atzilus, is a descent. Beis. Now, this difference between Yosef and the Shvatim, yesh adroi mamaylas, exists on multi-levels. Dahainu, what does that mean? B'chinas ma uban sheyesh b'chol partsof. That the difference between Yosef and the brothers, of them being Bria and him being Atzilus, is really on many higher and higher levels. The difference between Ma and Ban that there is in every partsof. In Kabbalah it says that there are, we know, 4 names. Yud Kei Vav Kei has 4 possible miluyim. One is 72, 163, 145, and 152. So here we're dealing with the 2 names of Ma and Ban. So in every partsof there is the Shem Ma, partsof for the various different configurations, the way the emanations of the process of godly flow as it takes on certain form from different spheros and attributes and worlds and so on and so forth. And in each dimension there is the Ma element and the Ban element. Now the Ban element is lower, is Malchus, is always related with Malchus, and the Ma element is always related to the Zod, the Ze'er Anpin, which is much higher than Malchus. And therefore, the Shvatim, they are from the Ban in every world, in every level. And Yosef, he's from the Ma of every world. Kihine Yedua, it is known, and he's going to explain this idea, not to get too intimidated. Actually, it reads very, very beautifully, the next passage. Kihine Yedua, it is known, the Malchus Da'ak, that from Malchus of Adam Kadmon, Hoya shoresh HaShvira, the root of Shviras HaKelim, of the shattered vessels, which causes all the problems. But really it's the whole purpose of creation, is that the vessels shatter, and that creates a mixture of good and bad, a light and darkness, and so on and so forth. And we do the repair, and then we receive the ultimate good, the ultimate revelation of Hashem comes after the repairing of Shviras HaKelim. But what's the Shvira? So in Kabbalah it says that the shoresh of the Shvira comes from Malchus of Ak, Malchus of Adam Kadmon. What's Adam Kadmon? So it's people say, what's Adam Kadmon? As if I know what Adam Kadmon is. I don't know what Adam Kadmon is, but a little bit we learn, so we try to discuss it, what it says. Adam Kadmon means primordial man. Primordial man means it's the first sketch of all of creation. It's where the Eibishter, it's where God is in once. It's the entire Seder Shtalshalos in one nekuna. But in every madrega there is all 10 spheres. So from Adam Kadmon, it's only the last element of Adam Kadmon, the Malchus of Adam Kadmon, that continues on to become the energy for the next stages. The Malchus of Adam Kadmon. Now, in that Malchus of Adam Kadmon, it translates into 7 kings. And those 7 kings are the 7 spheros of Tohu that have collapsed. Because the Arizal says that this whole shattering of vessels of Tohu is hinted to in Parshas Vayishlach, which we read a few weeks ago. All the way in the end of Parshas Vayishlach, it gives you this description of the ancestry, well, not the ancestry, the descendants of Esav, the Edomite world. And it describes over there that there were 7 kings of Edom, and by each one of them it says, Vayimloch, and he reigned, Vayamas, and he died. So the Arizal says it's much more than just a story of kings, earthly kings. It's referring to these deeps, these sphirot, these attributes, these pre-Atzilus attributes of the world of Tohu, which manifested and collapsed. They broke. But it's interesting. What happens, how do they break? Before that it says, Vayimloich, they reigned. It doesn't say they emerged, it says they reigned, they were kings. So over here he says, from there you see that they come from Malchus of Adam Kadmon. And because they come from Malchus of Adam Kadmon, the Malchus element of these spheres is what causes them later to collapse. Because they are called, the first page, B'Shem Malachim, the second paragraph, Sif Perig Beis, we're holding in the 4th line in Perig Beis. They're called kings. That Bela was king, and then he died. They come from Malchus. And what did we say earlier? Malchus is Ban. Yosef, we said he comes from Ma. So he comes from above Malchus. And therefore Yosef is above the whole idea of the Shvira. V'amelach Hashmini, and the 8th king, who Hadar. After it mentioned 7 kings, finally there's one more king of Edom. And that king, it says, didn't die. By him it doesn't say death. By Yimloch Hadar, his name is Hadar. And it speaks about his wife, Shem Ishtoim Mahatabel, Bas Meizav, and it says about his name of his city. His name of the city was Pa'u. Pa'u is where he comes. Now that's the most, you might say, useless information that there is in the Torah. That there is a fellow by the name of Hadar, he has a wife called Mahatabel, it says who her grandmother is, Meizav, and they have a town, they lived in a place, and in his city's name was Pa'u. Who cares? So obviously we understand there's very deep secrets over here. So what's the story? So we say like this, initially when Hashem emanated, he emanated seven spheres of Tohu. Each one collapsed because the oir was too intense. Remember we learned that the oiros and the kelim were not commensurate with each other. So it was shviras kelim, that's what it means, vayimlech vayamas. The 8th king, he's already after the falling of, now this is the beginning already of Olam Atikun. This is a new emanation. This is already a sweetened level. It's not too intense. And that's why he's called Hadar. What's the problem with Tohu? The problem with Tohu is extremism. The spheres were extreme. Chesed was only Chesed, and Chesed would not give an inch for Gevura. Gevura is extreme Gevura, and it doesn't leave any room for Chesed. They clashed. They all collapsed. There's no harmony. So really it says that the real power of Tikkun is really Tiferes. Tiferes is the main element. Even though there's a concept of Tiferes of Tohu, which you have to ask the question, how can there be a Tiferes of Tohu if the whole Tohu is that it doesn't allow for Tiferes? That needs a discussion onto its own to figure out what the Tiferes of Tohu is. But you have 7 spheros, but they're each one extreme, they don't leave any room for anything else, and they collapse. The 8th one is already the beginning of Tikkun, and that's why his name is Hadar. Hadar is already beauty. What's beauty? Hadar. It's a mixture, blends. That's where And that's why it's the only one that says he had a wife. Because the Gemara says that there were, amongst our sages, there were people who had a hanhaga from Tayu, who was an intense being, and he came from the world of Tayu. His conduct was in the manner of Tayu, and he taka ended up with a Shviras HaKelim. Ben Azai. Azai was very intense, and that's why he died. He went into Paradise, and he went in too intensely. Rabbi Akiva went up and returned, but Ben Azai, he collapsed. 4 of them went in. 3 of them, because they all went in a manner of Tayu. And what does the Gemara say about Ben Azai? Ben Azai didn't get married. He said, how can I do chashka nafshi b'Torah? Because part of tikkun is, what does the pasuk say? Loi l'Tayu bara, Hashem didn't create the world for chaos. L'sheves yitzara, to settle it, not for Tayu. So in the world of Tayu, there is there's no marriage. That's why the 2 sons of Aaron is the same thing. Nadav and Avihu, they didn't get married. Why? They were also Tayu. That's why they got very intense when they went in with the Aaron, and they didn't have the ability to go up and come back down. Ratzai v'shuv. Ratzai v'shuv is two tenuous. You have to be able to blend. You have to have balance. They didn't have balance. So toes, there's no balance. In Tikkun, there's balance. The 8th king, his name is Hadar. So really, he's not yet the world of Tikkun. He's the shoresh for the world of Tikkun. And that's the shoresh of where Yosef's neshama comes from. That's why about Yosef, the Torah keeps on mentioning how beautiful, how handsome he was. Because he comes from the king Hadar. Hadar means Hadar, creates Hadar. He comes from Hadar, that's why he was Yefei Toyar v'Yefei Mara. I didn't see this anywhere, but that can also be the reason why. You find Yehuda sinning, Reuven sins, the Shvatim all sinned, Mechiras Yosef. Yosef can't fail, because there's no shvira by him. There's no breaking by him. He had a test, but he passes every test with flying colors. Because he's beyond the shvira. There's no shvira sakelim by him. He's already the balanced light. Hadar. And by the way, what's the name of his city? What's the name of the city of Hadar? What do we say? What seems chas v'shalom to be useless information in the pasuk? Shem Iroi Pa'u. The name of the city is Pa'u. What's the gematria of Pa'u? Pei Ayin is 150. Pei is, right, 70 and 80. Plus 6, 156. Let's take a look at Yosef. Vav and Samach is 70 plus Pei is 80. 80 plus 70 is 150 plus 6. Yosef is 156. Because Pa'u, the city, that's where Yosef comes from. Yosef comes from the city of Pa'u. Yosef comes from the Madrega of Adar. Which over there is no Shvira, there's no Shvira Sakelim. Over here he's going to explain in the Maimer, how come there is no Shvira on the 8th level? You have another example to that. HaMelech HaMerumam, the exalted king, Levadoi alone, Me'az, from way back then. So the word Uz is Aleph above the 7. The 7 are the seven collapsed vessels of Tayu, 7 kings. But this is the king that's Merumam, he's exalted from them. That's the 8th king. That's the Me'az, Aleph above the 7. That's why it could be the reason when they came to Kriyas Yamsuf and Yosef appeared, they brought Yosef's thing. It split the sea. It was this level that was revealed. And what happened? Oz Yashim Moshe, Aleph over the Zaya. This transcendental level of Yosef. And there's no Shvir Sakim. Let's see. V'melech hashmini hu Adar. And the 8th king is Adar, Loi Meis didn't die. Ki hoya l'mayla mezayin malachim de Tayu. He's above the 7 kings of Tayu. And he comes from the Yesod of Adam Kadmon. Hanikra Hadura de Gufa. The reason why it's called Hadar, because the Yesod is called the Hadar of the body, the beauty of the body. Shalamayla Meshayrish Shvira, which is higher than the root of the Shvira of where the shattering of the vessels take place. Al Kain, therefore, Mimenu Atikun Vahabira. From him comes the whole tikkun and the whole beer. That's why when the Jewish people went to do the tikkun the first time in a place, where did all the shattered vessels all the sparks, they all went down to Mitzrayim. Most of the goodies that fell down, the sparks went down to Mitzrayim. Who was sent down to fix the Yosef went down there? Because he's the one that goes down to Mitzrayim. Lishbar bar. What does the pasuk say? Vayitzbar bar. Bar is Reish Beis. The Reish Beis Netzutzim. Yosef gathers. He does the work. Because he's above the Shvira, so he can go down there. Yeah. The who? M'shem ma hachadash. He comes from the Shem ma. Ma is total bittul. The memitzcha da'ak. He's not from the name ban. He's from the name ma. The memitzcha that comes from the metzach. Metzach is the forehead of Adam Kadmon. Can you do as it is known? I like the way as it is known. What exactly does that mean? What does it mean, the forehead of Adam Kadmon? What is this Mahachadash? I don't know. If one day when Mashiach will come, we'll know all these things. The Hine, Madregas Yosef, and the level of Yosef, Hu B'chinas Hadar. Yosef is that level of Hadar, Aniskaliyah. Ki hoya yafei toar. That's why he was so good looking, because he comes kiyidu as it is known. Madregas Shvatim, and the level of the Shvatim, Ma'azayin Malachim, they came from the 7 kings. The Ban Da'ak, they came from Ban, as we said earlier, from Malchus of Adam Kadmon, which is the source of the Ban, and that's where there was Shvira Sakeh. Okay, Lehavin, and to understand Mahu Inyan HaMalachim. What does it mean, the kings, the Ban Da'ak, of the Ban, of Malchus of Adam Kadmon, Vigam Inyan Hadar, and also to understand Hadar, Shuhu HaMavar, he's the one who purifies, and he's the one who fixes, Chulu. We first have to appreciate the whole idea. What he's basically going to explain is not, it's a very geschmacke explanation, it runs very smoothly. He's going to explain how the Orein Soif Be'etzem doesn't have any spheres in it. Because the Orein Soif is simple with utter simplicity. And therefore, you can't say on the Eibishter any tenuah of chesed, this, even in the most benign, benign, to say it's not a sphera, it's hidden, it's a potential of a potential, even that you can't say. Because if you're going to find potentials in the Eibishter for something, then it's already considered something. I'll give you an example. The potential of fire. When you have a manifest fire. Is a fire? A manifest fire. How about fire that's inside a coal? But it's not burning. When the coal is out, but deep inside there's still the fire. Is there fire there? You can't see it, but it's behelim, it's there. How about in Iraq? In Iraq, in a flintstone, there it's not even in the Metzias of fire at all. It's not hot. It's not glowing, it's not shining. But the rock has the potential for fire, and it doesn't have potential for what? Let's find something else. It doesn't have potential for, you can knock a rock till tomorrow, you can't take out of it what? Water you can't, that's right. Only because of the miracle, but you can't take out water from a rock. Potential for fire. That means that it's there. If we would say that on the Eibishter, that he's the potential for Chachma, the potential for this, that means he has it in him in a very benign way. That would be limiting him. So you can't even say that. So then, but how do all these things come from the Eibishter? So that we say that these things, the Eibishter's names, they're only his name. The Eibishter has Chachma, but it's his name. And what's a name? When you think about it, I'm asking you about he gives an interesting mashal. When you say about a person, when you want to evoke someone's potential. So if you need someone to do you a kindness, you need someone to be nice to you, but they're not in a kind mood, but you know they have it in them to be kind. So what do? Send them a nice letter, and it talks all about their kindness and how crazy, and that evokes the kindness. So you can pull the potential out. That's dealing with what? Something that's there, and it's hidden, and you have to fan the flames. You want to draw it forth. You want it to come to manifest by. But now there's another thing. A person has a name. And when you call a person's name, they turn to you. Now I'm going to ask you, in the person's neshama, I'm not talking in a mystical, abstract, ruchnistic way that will say, okay, the name is shaykh to the neshama. Do you have your name inside of you? No, there's nothing, your name is, certain talents are inside of you. Your name is not inside of you. Yet, when I evoke your name, it's as if it's created now. It's as if you're being nimshach. It's almost like these letters pop out. They're not inside of you, but they identify with you. It's almost like you create that channel now. Let's say, for instance, I'll give it a better example. How about that someone is given a name by his bris? Let's say that's a holy name, a shaykh to the letters of the name. What happens if we give someone a new nickname and suddenly someone started calling someone with a name and then suddenly everybody starts calling him by that name? That name for sure is not inside the person. But yet, it's still, when I call you, that person will turn around. Whatever the guy's name is, Fitzy, okay? His name is not Fitzy. His name is, I don't know, Yerachmiel. But for whatever reason, they started calling him Fitzy. Okay, but now he's in the airport and someone says, Fitzy! He'll turn around. What? He doesn't have the Fitzy inside of him. Yeah, okay, but now he identifies with that name. So it's as if, in other words, even though he doesn't have, but in regarding to him, to the outside, that's a name. So by the Eibishter, everything we say, all the spheres, Chachma, Chesed, this, it's all only names, which means when we call it, it's as if it's created. A particular emanation. Potentially, the Eibishter could have emanated a gazillion other different things. Anything. He has no shaykhs to these 10 spheres. Chachma, Chesed, Rachamim. Could have been a gazillion other things. He gave us 10 different things to call out to him, and he has 0 of that inside of him, but when we call out of it, the names, Kale, Rachum, whatever these names are, they cause him. So what do you see? That whole level of name is what? The whole inyan of name is the Eibishter's energy. It's like a ray, it's like to the outside. But how about the Orein Seif himself? Beyond all names. So the Shvatim, they're rooted in what? Already in the names. In shame, in the name. That's called the ban. The level of ban, that's the names. It's the source where name, you say the Eibishter has such a name. Yosef, he's rooted in the etzem of the Eibishter. And in the etzem of the Eibishter, there's no shvira. The shvira happens only in the emanations and the energies that he projected to the world. That's where there's a shvira sakelim, and that's where there's a whole business. So Yosef is from a place beyond. That's the nakuda that he's going to develop. I gave you that introduction so we can zoom through this. Okay? So now, let's go like this. In order to understand what are these kings of Ban of Ak, we have to preface by first prefacing something that is known. In the Orein Sof himself, you can't call him with any name, even to call the Eibishter a chacham, a wise being, or a kind being, the etzem in essence. Like when you call by a person, we could call a person. Or like we should, just like by a person, you say a person has ratzon, he has desire. To say by God that the Eibishter has ratzon. The Eibishter, his very self, is simple with utter simplicity. And desire. Or chachma and wisdom, but adam by a person. Hema merkavim, it's already what we call it. It's a composite. There's the person and there is his chachma. So you're already blending two things. You can't say it's a potential, like a flame that's inside. It's not manifest, but it's a potential. It's like a flame that's inside a coal. And we will say that in the same way is the erech, the value of when we speak about God's will or chachma of atzilus, to the essence of God. And we'll say that in the Eibishter's essence, it's not manifest. In atzilus, it's manifest. It's like a burning flame. In the Eibishter, it's like a flame that's in the coal. Because the shalheves, the flame exists in a concealed way in the coal. And here he doesn't say it, but in what's it called again, in the other version of the Maimer, he says, and even to say that it's like this, the flame, the fire that's in the stone, it also exists in to some degree. When in the essence of the Orin Soif, lo yurkav haratzain, there's no harkava, there's no integration of will, gam behelim, even in a concealed state. Is because he is simple with utter simplicity. And therefore we can't compare it, we can't draw an analogy between the Eibishter and human experience. Because by a human, even when you don't have your will revealed, the will is there be'etzem, because a human being is a composite. There's nothing wrong with us being a composite. But by the Eibishter, and that's what we say, Antchakim, that's what when we say the Eibishter, you are a chacham, you're wise, but not with a knowledgeable chachma, which means not with an identifiable chachma. V'loi bebina yediyah, not with an identifiable or a knowable bina. Pirish yediyah doesn't mean that we can't know it. Hugam, to say even kasha yamatzei behelim yediyah. Even if it's in a concealed state, it's also called a yediyah. It's also yediyah. It's already known. But in truth, it says in Paradise is a sefer Kabbalah from Ramosha Kardova, from the Ramak. Inyan Yud Svirois Hagenuzois Ba'atzmos. The Ramak talks about the potential. The Ramak speaks about 10 spheroids that are embedded, gnuzois, that are hidden and that are embedded in Atzmos himself, in the essence of the emanator. Einam al derech zeh klal. It's not chas v'shalom to say that there is a potential. Ki al derech mashal kriya shem levad. They're only like calling a name. V'zeu shama b'zoyar. And that's why it says in the Zoyar, the chol oireis hanetzalim, all the lights of the emanations, mina atzmos, that come from the essence, hem raza de shmei levad. They're only the secret of the Eibishter's name. And so it's in Eitz Chaim, the chol his havus netzal, einoi elo bebchina shemos. It says in Zohar, it says also in Eitz Chaim, that all the coming into beings of the netzalim, of the emanations, they're only the names, they're only on a level of God's names, they're not touching the Eibishter's essence. The Ayin Beis, whether it's the name of Ayin Beis, which is in Chochmah, Samach Gimel, which is in Bina, and so on, Levad. Hadvarim, and the explanation of the matter is, if so, how do you call him Chacham? If he doesn't have it and it's only in his name, which means it can only emanate from him, so how do you call him Chacham? We know when we call the Eibishter Chacham, we're calling him Chacham. So how does that work? In Eyuvan, so we'll understand that al derech mashal makriya shem Chacham ba'adam atachton. When we call down here by the human being down here below, we call him a Chacham. Shagam, we call him a wise man. Shagam shebezeh ein mashal daimel animshal. And even though we're using a mashal which is not accurate, because sha'adam chacham behelim, a person, I mean, if you're going to call him wise, it's because be'etzem he's wise. Hopefully, you're being honest. He has chacham, ukanal, and you're trying to get it. You're saying you're so smart. Tell us. You're trying to evoke that chacham. So you can't really use that as an analogy on God, because God doesn't have the chachma, meaning he's not limited. He doesn't have the defining element of chachma inside of him, because that would be defining it. But there is a certain analogy. What's the analogy? What we could compare is as follows. By a human being who be'etzem is a potential chacham, or a potential kind man, how do we evoke it? How do we stimulate this hidden, latent chachma? By addressing it, by praising it. You praise it, you speak about it, you evoke that power to emerge out to the open. With this calling that we call him a wise man. V'nimtza comes out. Before we called him a wise man, he himself did not know of his own wisdom. He himself wasn't aware of it. And now when we spoke about it, that's why it's always important to speak praise about people, to evoke their talents and their abilities. It's as if he became a chacham now. Even though it's not true, if he's going to have it later, he had it always in potential. He had the koyach chachma, but it's as if he now became a chacham, bekriya v'soidedazu, in this call. So, but by a human being, it's only as if he became a chacham. By the Eibishter, when we call him chacham, we actually make him a chacham. Because before that, he's not a chacham because he's not shaykh to chachma. He's infinitely beyond any. He's simple with utter simplicity. So when we call the Eibishter a chacham, we're actually making a chacham. That's why it's not such apikurus as what I said in some of my shiurim in the past, and I said it in Lakewood last week also during the Fabrengen. We spoke about this Indian. That the Baal Shem Tov made the Eibishter recognize that he has Yidden, that the Yid is his child, he's his one and only child. And the Eibishter should stop looking at us mitzad our milus, but the Eibishter should look at us mitzad our etzah. So, how can the Baal Shem Tov make something in the Eibishter? That's what he's saying over here. And the Eibishter is parshat petachlis apshitis. When we call him chacham, we make him a chacham. It's different. By a human being, you're just triggering the chachma. It's there, but that's not a maila, that's not a quality of the human, that's a limitation. That the human being is limited in scope. He has 10 qualities, and these are his qualities. Some people don't have the chachma, they have very little, and others have more chachma. So when you're praising this person as a chachma, you're manifesting something that would have otherwise gone unnoticed even to the person himself. All right, it's like you have a child that is really brilliant, a prodigy. But if not enough people tell him that he's a prodigy, he might never believe it. But when he really told it, you're very smart, you're very smart, so maybe he'll start using his cup and actually start being smart because people tell him that. I'm not saying sometimes it's not good to overtell him. He thinks that he's smart without the work. But be'etzem, yeah. But by the Eibishter, when we praise God, we're actually creating the sphera. That's what I'm saying? It's as if it is be'emes that way. Shall they kriya Hashem levad hu nasa chacham? He becomes a chacham. Lihikaros matzel oira chachma, to be called the emanator of the light of chachma. Vayedei kriya Hashem chassid. When we call the Eibishter a chassid, oireru ha'atzmus, we evoke the atzmus lios la'or, that he should become a luminous umekoir la'or chesed hanetzal, and that he should become a source for chesed hanetzal that is emanated. That's why we say they're only his names. Why? Before we called him, he was simple with utter simplicity. Because even in a concealed state, you won't find the makar, the source of these lights, of these emanating lights, like we said earlier. And even they are hidden there. To himself, they're not really true that they're there. Like there is by a person. By a person, they exist very benign carvings inside of him. The Eibishter doesn't have any carvings, or triangles, or squares, or circles. He is simple with utter simplicity. And therefore, you can't define him with any definitions. We actually create it through calling out to him and evoking and raising feminine waters to him. Just like by human experience, we take something from a concealed to a revealed through calling out to it. By Hashem, even the concealed happens at that time. From the essence of the simple essence, and is enough to those who understand. That's why he says it's more compared to the name of a person than to the qualities of a person. Because the qualities of a person, as we said earlier, chacham and chesed, these are things that are more embedded in you. It's just that you have to shine light upon them. You have to draw them out. But a name of a person, especially a random name that people started calling someone, he doesn't have the name inside of him. By calling him that name, we create within him a passageway through which he shines his light. It's not so much inside of him before they call him. Ratzon and chachma is more part of the person. When they call him yifna l'koyroi, still he turns to one who called him. The atzmos, the essence of the Eibishter, turns. It's like a name. You're calling him by the name of kindness, through the name of in the kindness of atik yoimin or kedoyim as it is known. And he's calling himself that way deeply inside of him to become a potential for that inyan. It's understood. It's a very, very amazing thing, what we're saying over here, as how we can design the Eibishter. You realize that? When we're calling the Eibishter by certain names, we're actually creating him. I don't mean creating him. He's like a plain piece of paper in that sense that has no... And the way we relate to him, that's how we draw him forth. Isn't that the most coolest thing? So just like the evoking of that which is concealed below by a person, similar to that is when we say it's 10 Yutzviris Hagnuzes, it means it's not there, it's just that when we will evoke them, it's as if it's there. It's not really there, but we're actually creating their potential, but that's why we can understand this level from where it's created, so to speak. Let's put it this way. This power that we can draw Hashem forth in any shape or form that we're calling him into, we can understand that that doesn't affect his essence, that affects the way he emanates to us. So that's the idea of Malchus of Adam Kadmon. Malchus is always the idea of kingship is only from you to someone else. So if we go deeper than Malchus, and we're getting to Yesod of Adam Kadmon, that's really the essence of Adam Kadmon himself, as he is for himself. Creation doesn't even nash or nibble on that level. Creation is only from the Malchus, only from the name element, only from the spherotic, from the spheros element, which is the idea of these. It's almost like it's not even the true substance of Eibishter. And that's why we say, Ani Hashem lo shenisi, Hashem doesn't change from creation. Because it's only his names, it's not even him. He's being called into, and that's the energy that the whole creation is based on. The holding building blocks of creation, the foundations of creation, are these names that don't even exist in him. Is when we call them, it becomes that. So we can understand the difference between the Malchus of Atzilus, the Malchus of Adam Kadmon, to the Yesod of Adam Kadmon, is what? Is an infinite and absolute gap. This is Eibishter as he be'etzem is, and this is... So if we say that the Shvatim come from the Malchus of Adam Kadmon, and Yosef comes from Yesod of Adam Kadmon, the distance is Ein Sof. This is the Malchus of Adam Kadmon, which is the root of the 7 kings. Piddish. The whole idea of calling a name. Since this is the bottom of all levels. Shala Atzmus of the essence. Malchus, that's why it's called Malchus, because that's what Malchus is. Ki amida shel ha-Malchus. The whole idea of Malchus is the expressor. Malchus is the way something expresses itself to the outside. Pashtus is the expansion. His galus and the revelation levad ki yidu as it is known. Malchus ta'ak, and this is the idea of Malchus of Adam Kadmon. Ki ak ba'atzmusai, because Adam Kadmon in its own, who kadmus hamatzal, is the Kadmus means the primordial emanator, ba'atzmus Orin Seif Baruch Hu, in the essence of the Orin Seif, which means that which always was. V'shia nikra b'shem legabe anatzolim, that he should be called with a name to the emanations. Chacham, wise, chastin, kind, b'chachma yediyah, with a knowledgeable chachma, with a knowable chachma. Hainu b'chinas malchus ta'ak, that only happens from the malchus element of Adam Kadmon Levad. Shu b'chinas Shemoy, which is only his name, v'loy matzmusay, not from his essence, k'nis kaliyah. U'meklolis in Yeshemoy. That's the general name. So there's generally one level called Malchus, which is his name. And from there comes the seven names, which each one is a particular manifestation. The Savu Prate Hashem comes the details of the name. The Zayin Malachim of the 7 kings. Shen Zayin Midos, which are the 7 Midos. Hagnuzos, which are hidden. B'matzel, which means the potential. As we said before, it's not even a potential. In Malchus they're hidden, but they're not hidden deeper in him. And from there they emanate. And on there can be shvira. If this energy comes out too intense, there's a shvira, and there's a whole history, there's a whole story of creation happening. The name of Banda'ak, shu shoresh to shoresh hashvatim, which is the root of the Shvatim. Lamata b'malchus datzilus. Remember, these malchus, the malchus levels of each levels are connected to each other. So the malchus of Adam Kadmon eventually makes its way down to malchus of Atzilus, which we said before, malchus Atzilus is that sea, that beneath it, that Shlomo Melech made as the 12 bakar, which are the 12 shvatim. So it's connected. Kisheme'ira lamata, when this finally makes its presence into creation, into the system later in creation, when it shines below, behechel kodesh kodeshim, in the hechel of kodesh kodeshim of Bria, is where the shvatim are. V'omnam hadar, however, the level of hadar, hu ha'or ras atzmos to Adam Kadmon, is the illumination of the essence of Adam Kadmon, b'pchinas yisoid shaboy, from the element of yisoid, shalamaylam b'pchinas shem, which is way above the idea of a name. That's why it's above the whole idea of the shattering. The shvira is only in the letters. Malchus is letters. What's the whole idea of letters? For yourself, you don't need letters. Letters are only for what? For you to speak out, to emanate, to shine to others. You need your letters of speech. So the shvira only happened in this level of oisiyos, but nothing in Kamash Bar Be'ezras Hashem. That's why Dafke is the one who fixes them. Through the name of Ma, of that's coming from this the forehead of Adam Kadmon, as explained elsewhere, Baruch at great length. Okay, once we get here, we can understand the whole idea of Shechem, the work of the Shvatim, the work of Yosef, how they're working at the very bottom, and Yosef is working at the very top. We're going to take a break for a few minutes. I just want to finish Perek Gimel, which is going to go, especially since we gave all the introductions now, so it's going to go really geschmiert. Be'ezus Hashem, from Gimel to Dalid, shouldn't take us more than 40 minutes. And then we're going to break till next week, Thursday, and then we're going to finish. info. Shall we continue? So we're holding on page 206, Perek Gimel. Now we can understand the pasuk. And I have given you a shchem echad over your brothers. And the root of this is as follows. Because the Shvatim were involved, as we said earlier. Their inyan is to raise the Shechina. Their inyan is, see, they're existing within creation, at the very bottom. In creation, what do we have? A situation where the Shechina, which is the power of God emanating and creating the world, is being mahava what's called pnimius and chitzonius. Pnimius is that which the Eibishter desires, giving life, sustaining that which is holy and godly in the world, malachim, and those malachim will serve the Eibishter, and so on and so forth. And then trickling down to our world, those elements in this world that are positively identified with Kedusha, and so on and so forth. But the Shechina gives a vast amount of energy to the unholy. And that's all the klipas noga, which the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya from the Arizal, is most of the stuff in this world is in a klipa state before we fix it. And there's even shalish klipas atmeis, there's even the 3 impure klipas, which derive energy and they're very strong and powerful. Our avoda is, we're like miners, we got to go we have to go down under the earth, we have to go into the klipa, go into the 12 shvatim. What do? They do a birur, toif amra. They take the good out. Whatever is kosher, whatever is elevatable, like the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, we're learning these Tanyas the last couple of days, klipas noga, whatever has elevated it, we strip away the bad, which means we don't use it for what it suggests itself to be used, and that is just for a good time. Instead, we take that energy and we use it to serve the Eibishter, God's interest. So we're tearing the chitzonim. The forces of klipa lose their energy because we're engaging it. And we're taking the energy out from the klipa, putting it to Kedusha. That's the avodah of ma'almim alumim I told you earlier, and that's the avodah of Shechem, taking from the back and moving to the... But where are we doing it? We're doing it down over here in creation, at the very end, where the Shechina is the last force, the last level of godliness, the words of Hashem. Hashem is emanating, speaking, and creating the world on the farthest level of Elokus. We're trying to separate. Remember I said earlier that the klipas derive energy at the very end, the end. Over there we're trying to separate the good from the bad. Yosef has a much, much higher role. Yosef is going to bring another birur, also a birur. But a birur not at the end, but let's go, what's deeper than God's speech? Hashem's thoughts, Hashem's thinking. What's deeper than Hashem's thoughts? Hashem's emotions. So much deeper, talking about deep in Atzilus, the powerful emotions of God. What's deeper than the Eibishter's emotions? The Eibishter's intellect. The Chabad of the Eibishter ain't sof. What's deeper than the Eibishter's Chabad? The Eibishter's desire. And above desire is Hashem himself. The Baal HaRotzain is the Eibishter himself. The place where the klipa comes to derive energy, and aside from taking at the bottom from between the words, from the letters, another place they go is they want to go to the will of Hashem, the desire of God, and they're happy when the Eibishter is like not really in the mood of playing the whole game. So when Hashem is a little withdrawn, so his will is like kind of he has a will, which means he has a desire to be a creator or to emanate energy. But when he's not focused in on what he desires, when he's not taking his desire and focusing it through his mind, but he's letting the desire flow just on its own, then because the world and everything in it is so nothing, so the klipa is also really nothing. So it's like a little spider that we once learned about, the little spider that in a small little house, the balabasta, the homekeeper will chase the spider out with a vengeance. But in a huge palace of a king, no one notices the spider. The spider can climb around. So at this level of Urein Sof, of the level of Keser, or where the Ratzon of God is, over there, who cares? So the flow of energy can flow even down to the Chitzonim. That's called, that from the Ratzon, and here's an amazing thing. Ratzon is the skull, is Keser. Ratzon is the Keser. So it's the skull. The back of the skull is the back of the neck. The neck is called Oref. And if you rearrange the letters of Oref, Ha'oref, you get Paro. Paro is the king of Mitzrayim, which is the source, the king of Acharayim, the king of the backside, the king of this whole kingdom that doesn't care about God, that wants to take all the energy of God for their perverse life, for their lives full of depravity. And where they're deriving all their powerful energy? From the Eibishter. Why? From the skull, from the Oref, from the back. Yosef's avoda is to cut Paro down at his very, very source. That the Eibishter, at the level of skull, not at the final level of speech, which is all the way at the end, but at the very, very, very beginning of beginning, over there, to get the Eibishter in the mood to play the game of creation, which is Torah and mitzvahs and so on. So the Eibishter should direct his energy to the Pnimius and not let it be free for all, an infinite flow where the Klippa can take as well. So it's also a birur from Acharayim to Pnimius, from back to Pnimius, from the backside to the inside, but it's on a, what should you call it, on a primordial level. It's on a level, try to call it, I can't even use the word exponentially higher. We're talking about exponential, higher and deeper on the level where Yosef is doing that birur. But that's why the Yaakov says to him, I am giving you a Shechem Echad. You're doing the Shechem, the changing from the back to the front, Echad alachecha, much higher than your brothers. On a much higher level than your brothers. The Ata Yesh Lehavin. So therefore, what comes down from quoting to this is that even if Yaakov Avinu would have gone to very good parenting classes, and he would have had like a modern day psychologist explain to him how it's not nice to show favoritism to your children, Yaakov still would have no choice, but he would still have to treat Yosef differently. So Yaakov wasn't a good parent. He didn't know. It's like, Yaakov sees. He sees the potential. He knows their souls. He knows who's where and on what level. So to Yosef, he's going to give what he needs to give to Yosef. Over your brothers. The shoresh Hadvarim elu, and the root of the matter is as follows. Because this, that the shvatim were ma'almim alumim, they were sheaving sheaves. Himishem ban, they're taking the sparks from the name of ban, from Malchus. Dibibiyah, in Bria, Yetzir, and Asiya, there is the sparks from Malchus. Lahapacharalatov, to convert the bad to good. V'hu shechem b'chenas acharayim, to take from the back to the front. That's why, as we remember, I told you, that's why, where were they grazing their flocks? In Shechem. Because that's where you transition from the back to the front. Yosef was doing the work on a much deeper place. In Atzilus itself, he was busy moving from the shoulders of Erech Anpin, where the neck is. Which is the back of Erech Anpin. Hanikra Paro, which is called Paro, because Paro was the letters Ha'oref, the neck. Yosef wants to direct the energy from the Pnimius of Erech Anpin, from the Pnimius of Keser. Erech Anpin means the long faith, which is Keser, which is the level of desire, of will, that the Eibishter's will should be in the program, in what Hashem truly cares about, which is in the Chachma and the Bina, which is God's wisdom, which He appreciates what His plan for creation is. The deeper plan, the godly plan. Right? So, it should go to the Erech, who, now, if the energy is going to flow from the skull, from the down to Chachma and Bina, and from there down into the creation, that means that now by Chachma and Bina it says Kenei Chachma, Kenei Bina, acquire Chachma and acquire Bina, but it uses the word Kaneh. Now Kaneh is really the pipe in a human being. Kaneh is the pipe, the windpipe that goes from, and the windpipe really attaches itself to the brain, then it goes down to the heart. Over here you get the oxygen, but it's really attached to the brain and it goes to the heart. When we're saying that Yosef is bringing light from the Keser down into Chachma and Bina, means he's funneling it through the Kaneh, the Knei Chachma, Knei Bina. And what that means, he's bringing it into the Sar HaMashkin. Let me one more Hakdama, one more introduction we need before we can learn further. Paro, we said, is the king of Egypt. He's in the back. Now Paro has an entire infrastructure of Klippa. He's the king of Klippa. He's got a whole infrastructure of Klippa. Paro is the neck, but then he has to channel his energies down into the world of Klippa. How does that happen? So it goes through the neck, is the back, but by the back there's the throat. And the front is the throat, and the back is the neck, but there is and what do you have over there? You have a channel. And really, what you have over there is three pipelines. Three pipelines. The three pipelines are the windpipe, which is called what is it called? The trachea. Is the trachea is the windpipe. Then you have the esophagus, which is the food pipe. And then you have the main blood artery. That's called the viridin. So when you take a look, when Yosef comes down to Mitzrayim, you find him immediately being involved with three ministers of Paro. He gets sold to the minister, the butcher, Sar HaTabachim, that's Potiphar. He's the butcher. But in a very short period of time, he ends up in prison, and he encounters the other two ministers of Paro. The butler, which is really the Sar HaMashkin, he's the bartender, and the Sar HaOfen is the guy in charge of the baker. So in Kabbalah it says that these are three. They're not just physical figures; they're spiritual powers. What are they? There are these three pipes, but they're serving Paro. So Paro is at the neck, but how does Paro channel his energy down to the rest of the body of Klippa? Through these three pipes. The windpipe is one kind of Klippa. So let me see. The windpipe is really where moisture goes. In the wind, moisture goes down to the lung. And so therefore we're going to learn more about it more in detail next week. That's associated with the Sar HaMashkin. He's bringing liquid. So that's what the windpipe does. It takes moisture, it brings it to the lungs, it blows that cool moisture onto the heart, that actually cools the heart. That's the mashkin. Then there's the butcher. The butcher is associated with blood because he kills the animals, takes their blood out. So that's more related to the blood artery. The main blood artery, I don't know what it's called, the main blood artery that runs up through the neck. I have a name for it. What's it called? You remember what it's called? The main blood artery that runs through the neck. In any case, that artery, so that's the Sarat HaBachim, that's the butcher. The baker is associated with the esophagus, which makes sense because it's bread. He bakes bread, and bread is the food. But really, as he's going to explain later in the Maayon, we're going to see that the esophagus serves as the intermediator between the other two pipes, because the main objective of the water pipe, of the mashkin, Sarah mashkin, is mainly downward flow, like water flows downward. It's mainly about bringing the moisture of the brain, the coldness of the brain, down to the heart. We're going to talk about it more next week, so I'm not going to elaborate on it now. The main objective of the baker, I'm sorry, not of the baker, of the The artery is to take the blood, which is mainly in the heart, and to pump it up to the brain. It's an upward pump. So it's the opposite. One is going down, one is going up. The baker, the esophagus, does both. Because what is the blood, what is the food? It brings the food. What does the food do? The food creates blood. So on the one hand, it's associated with the butcher, with the pipe, the blood artery, because it's producing blood. But on the other hand, it's also strengthening the connection. I think that's what they say. I'm going to see later. I'll look into it. We're going to further explain it next week, and I don't remember how he explains how it's connecting the brain. It's also a downward. It's an upward and a downward kind of a element. It serves as the mediator between the two powers. So in Paro, these are all three forces of Klippa, and the main dangerous guy is the baker. That's why Yosef finishes him off. That's why Yosef immediately gets him strung on a tree. The Sar HaMashkin, Yosef elevates. That's why he puts him back on his post. That's an elevatable part of the Klippa that we can elevate. It's a Klippa, but it can be elevated. And the Sar HaTabachim also, exactly what. And then Yosef, what does he do? He becomes the Mishnah Lamelech. He makes his way up to become the secondary to Paro. And what does he do? When he's working right on the Paro, he's kind of a sneaky guy. Because even though he's working for Paro, he's really redirecting the energy of Egypt. Instead of it flowing into the corrupted world of Paro, he's directing the resources of Egypt to feed the whole world. He's doing positive things with Paro's money. Paro is into, you think about, who are his ministers that he has? Instead of having a minister of education and a minister of I don't know, what other things, a health minister, and so on and so on, to take care of the country, what kind of ministers does he have? He's got a baker and a bartender, and these guys will run his country. You can see the whole thing is chitzonius. The whole thing is just to have a good time. So Yosef becomes in charge, and what does Yosef do? He takes the energy from the back and directs it towards positive ends, towards the front. But he has to work his way through the ministers first to get up there. But spiritually, to substitute the three ministers coming from the neck, Yosef has to create three ministers that serve Yosef's purpose. The three pipes to the front, which he's going to explain in holiness what that means. Again, next week, we're going to learn that. He's going to explain how Torah study is one of them. Prayer is the other one, just in short. Torah study is the flow, is the water going down. Prayer, fervent, fiery prayer is the blood artery going up. And speaking Torah is the baker, he's going to explain. Learning Torah intellectually is but speaking words of Torah is the baker, so we're going to learn later, it's the medium between the two. When we create a holy Sar HaMashkim and a holy Sar HaOifim and a holy Sar HaTabachim, we have the vessels there to contain the flow in the front, and then they don't leak in the back. That's Yosef's main avoda, to flip the energy from flowing in the backside to move it towards the front. And that's his birah. And that's what he's saying over here. From the shoulders of Erech Ampin, which is the back, Erech Ampin. Hanikra Paro, which is called Paro, which Paro is the letters of Oref. For the Shefa to come from the Pnimius, from the innermost of Erech Ampin. L'chachma bina to chachma bina hu Sar HaMashkin, which is the Sar HaMashkin, Kenei Chachma, the connection of Sar HaMashkin to it's the Kaneh. The Kaneh is the Sar HaMashkin. And it shouldn't go to the back. The Erech Anpin, where it was flowing till now, Yosef went to make that tikkun. I'm giving you one shechem. The explanation of this matter is we first need to understand Maayon acharayim, the Erech Anpin. What does it mean, the acharayim of Erech Anpin? What does it mean, the back of Erech Anpin? Yos, can you do it? There's no Betzalel is here. The Yos, can you do it? Is no. What a surprise. In Mavur b'makam acher, it is explained elsewhere. Be'in yin shemamis b'yadayim titafis. So this, it is known what it says elsewhere. In the concept of, we say the spider, b'yadayim titafis, the spider, remember I gave that example earlier. A spider, everybody chases a spider. But what? Vihi doesn't bring the end. And the spider marches around happily in the king's palace and no one bothers her. So it's explained because no one cares about it. Because in the big palace, no one notices a spider. The same is also in the vastness of the Ein Sof, no one notices the klipa. So klipa can come up there and think they can take whatever they want. And he gives another example to that. You see, when a person is sleeping, an amazing thing. When a person is sleeping, flies can have races on a person's nose. 3 flies can race from one end of the nose to the other end of the nose. And the person doesn't swap them away. Why? Because he's sleeping, he's unaware of it. When he's awake and a fly tries to land on his nose, what does he do? Don't you dare come on my nose. But when he's asleep, the fly can march around and parade on a person's nose because you're asleep. What do you see? What happens when a person's asleep? When they're asleep, they're withdrawn from their body. They're in a higher place. So they don't notice that someone is flying. But when they're awake, which means they're more present and they're alert and they care about, their body. So it's the same thing as with the Eibishter. When the Eibishter is in a state of sleep, what does that mean? Golus is considered asleep. What means he is withdrawn from the whole game of creation, from the whole project. So the klippas can climb on his nose and he doesn't throw them away. So the whole idea of what Yosef went down to Mitzrayim is to wake the Eibishter up, to get him involved, so that he chases the fly away. It's a time when the mochin depart. Even when this fly goes on his face, lo yargish, he doesn't feel. And the explanation of the matter is when a person is involved, gets absorbed in his essence, lo yitzfis makam be'enov, which means when a person is deeply in a state of inwardness, it doesn't occupy any space by him, anything that's against him. Because he's not relating to the outside. So if something is opposing him, he's not going to bother about it. When a person is very deeply involved in learning something, he doesn't even feel when someone is contradicting him. Because he's so deeply involved. But when the desire comes down, and gets contracted into intellect, when even though it's a tremendous contraction that you should compress yourself into your mind, but this is the quality, it's the total opposite. Once he's involved in his reasoning and logic, so he gets very upset when someone is opposing him. That he feels very much the opposition, even if he's a tiny bit. Once you contract your desire into reason, then you can feel very much anything that's opposing it. That he can't stand anybody that's standing against his will. And he will reject it completely. And this is the reason when a person wakes up from his sleep, he notices the fly. In other words, when the energy is in a state of makif, then klipa can get away with it. When the energy comes down from makif into pnimi, that's where, even though it's much more constricted, it has a purpose and it has a specific desire that it wants. The kol's a mashal Lehavin lamayla, and this is all a mashal to understand, an analogy to understand above. Inyan acharayim be'erech anpin. The idea of the backside of erech anpin. Liyois ki inyan erech anpin yadu. What's the idea of erech anpin? Shua ratzin. It's the ratzin. Ba'atzmai. Hakoidl kol gila ritzainis pratiyim, which include all the revelation of specific desires. It's the simple one bigger desire, the fact that I want to live or I want to be present. And then there is all the specific desires. And what's the backside? Nisker besider b'divna maschal avadam ayinu. Liyois, is the back of it means like things that you don't desire, but you can tolerate them. Liyois ki beratzin hagoli. Harei meir boy b'pnimiyis erech anpin kinere b'chush. Since in Ratzin, in revealed desire, The entire pnimius erech anpin is revealed. Kenera b'chush, a kol pnimius hanefesh, that the entire innermost of a person's soul, miskasheres ba'aratzin, gets involved in ratzin. When a person desires something very strongly, the entire soul is there. But when a person has no will in it, there's no pnimius of his there's a little bit of it. It's like certain things in your house that you love, and you realize it's a very precious furniture, a precious thing. You bought a painting, you bought something, and you walk into your house, your entire desire is in that particular thing. Then you have certain things that are sitting in shelves, and they're just sitting there. You let it be, and you keep on thinking, I should really throw this out. Yeah. You see. So then there's space in you for it to exist, but there's very little desire in it. It's there, let it stay. It's like something you're throwing over your shoulder. That's called the back of erech anpin. The whole substance of desire is very high, much higher than seichel. It's not so contracted. Like intellect, like we said earlier. Ratzin is still a koyach makiv, so it doesn't go so much into a keli. So it's ein sof, ki yedu as it is known. So then even someone who's against the Ratzin and therefore doesn't get the pnimius of the Ratzin, but since Ratzin in essence is so vast, so if you're nashing from Ratzin, you can be nashing and be a billionaire just from nashing from the Ratzin. Because Ratzin is it's an energy that's so it's not filtered yet, and it's not screened. It's so ein sof that even if you're just being tolerated by Ratzin, you can still get an enormous amount. That's what the Klippa wants. They want the Eibishter to be asleep, like kind of not caring, and they can take from his desire, but even from the back of his desire, it's an enormous, much more than they can take from the bottom leakage, as we spoke earlier. Yakabel harba shefachayas, they can receive an abundance of energy. Kol's man shaloi nesamtzim haratzon b'seichel, as long as the ratzon did not get contracted into seichel. V'zeu marach af l'rishayim, that the Eibishter tolerates the wicked. Marich af comes from erech anpin. Erech anpin means the long. Ekenya Maimer Razal, Chazal say, Loidia kama erech apayim lofanu. It says that there were 10 generations that God got angry, and the Eibishter let them live. Not only let them live, He gave them brachas chas v'shalom. Because it's coming from erech anpin, He tolerates, and He's not really. Because the power of Ratzin is so great, and it's so broad. Even that which he's throwing over his shoulders, even the little crumbs, gamkin harbe, is also so much shefa. There's such a flow. Which they would never receive when the Eibishter is putting on his chachma lens and analyzing the world from the place of chachma. And that's the idea of paroi. Oire fe'elyon, the supernal neck, shemakabel yanika macharayim be'erech anpin, which can receive from the back of erech anpin, and that's where the klippas can rob kedusha and have an unbelievable power. And particularly when the Eibishter is like withdrawn into himself, which means he's not engaging the creation, and therefore the purpose of creation is not so vivid in his eyes, in his mind at that time. So therefore the energy flows indiscriminate, so to speak, and a lot of it flows down into the acharayim, into the back. When the Eibishter is in a tenua, in a state of withdrawal from being intimate with the creation and the like, the klippas can then have a lot of energy. In Paradise, from the Ramak, there is an erech, there is a section on the word oi. Oi is a Jewish krechts. We always krechts on oi. And there's a whole section of Kabbalah explaining oi. What's oi? Oi is when oi mehoya lano. When the Eibishter withdraws deeper in himself, becomes oi. L'chein nimshal b'chenezu l'shina. That's called shina. Sleep. Shual derech l'mashal ma'mata, just like by a person, ba'adam atirda agdoyla ba'atzmus koyach haratzin. By a human being down here, when he gets very, very involved in his koyach haratzin, very much pulls it into himself. The kolachshiv v'lo yargish b'menagdim, and then he doesn't feel anybody against him. Legili ritzayna, even people that are against his desire, he's not that conscious of his desire at that moment. It's because he's pulled into he's pulling back into the source from where the desire comes from, into himself. So he's not so much in the desire. To that which even an enemy of his or someone against him can also receive a lot of thing. And this was the whole idea of Galus Mitzrayim. The Yosef Hurad Mitzrayim. That Yosef went down to Mitzrayim. Pirish, what does that mean? Yosef Yisoy Da'ak. So Yosef is the level, as we said earlier. Yosef is higher than the Eibishter's Ratzon. Malchus is Ratzon. Malchus of Adam Kadmon, that's the Ratzon. As we said earlier. Because Malchus is Hashem's name. It's Hashem's relationship to the world. Yisoid of Adam Kadmon is like the Baal HaRatzon, the willer of the Ratzon. Shemeir beGalgalta de Erechampin. That shines in the Gilgolas, Hanikra Baal HaRatzon. Galgalta is the Ratzon itself. The Yisoid of Ak that shines in Galgalta is called the Baal HaRatzon. We said earlier, Yisoid of Ak is the emanator himself. It's Hashem himself. And therefore, the state of where Yosef is, the Baal HaRatzon, the willer of the will, is he in his will or is he withdrawn, is what? Going to determine what's happening in creation. Because in the will can go in various directions. The energy of the will is what drives the life of creation. But the question is the will connected to the Baal HaRatzon? Is the Baal HaRatzon invested in that will? Or even though he has a will, he's not there. It's like you have a person all the time there. You have desires, things that you want very much. But there are times when you disconnect from the things that you very much want, because you pull into a more inward state. And even the things you very much want, you don't feel it right now, because you're kind of sleepy, drowsy, tired, or not in the mood. And the same inyan happens above by the Eibishter too, when he gets like not in the mood in the whole thing. It's like a sleep state, the Kedayim. And then the Oref, that's called Mitzrayim, receives its vitality. Mibchenas Yisoy Da'ak. From the Yisoy, so it's interesting. Yosef Hurad, is that to end the Gullus, or does that start the Gullus? Yosef going down to Mitzrayim, into Paro, does that create the Gullus or does that end the Gullus? Well, from the Maayon it's mashma both. And the truth is, the reason it can be both is because in the story of Mechiras Yosef was taking the cause for both. Think about it. When Yosef went down to Mitzrayim physically, it was the cause for the Gullus, and it was also the cause for the what? For the Geula. It was the cause for both. So in the Pnimius, it's also the same thing. On the one level, Yosef Hurad means that some energy of the Baal HaRatzon, of the willer of the will, because he's so withdrawn and so into himself, some of his energy leaks to the backside. That's the meaning of Yosef Hurad, that Yosef's energy, Hurad Mitzrayim, goes to Mitzrayim, goes into the back. And that's the meaning of where Yosef ends up in the back. Imagine, his brothers are having Friday night meals with Yaakov, learning Torah. They're all on the front side of creation. And he ends up in Potiphar's house, on the real backside of creation, and then in a prison, and then in the forgotten world of Egypt that's all the way in the back. And Yosef is the Pnimius of the Eibishter, falling down. That's Gullus. Shahurat kol kach harba u'mepnei oitzem esnasus batzmusei dafka. Because he is so withdrawn in himself, then some of his energy can leak into the backside canal. In the idea of the spider that everybody will chase after. The reason why the sarim, the ministering angels of the Gentiles, of the Gentile world, who gam came because he's so elevated in himself, as stated elsewhere. This is what creates the gullus. That we were servants to Paro. Paro was the neck. The neck was more powerful than the front. The Ze'er Ampin was in a state of pregnancy, wasn't developed. That means the side of Kedusha, Torah, mitzvahs, the whole channels of Kedusha were not developed. We're all in a fetal state. That means there wasn't any presence. There weren't kalim of Kedusha in the world. Instead, the whole party and the whole structure was in the back. Shazeh inya Mitzrayim meitzer mi, v'chol ikr Yetzias Mitzrayim hayo. How did Yetzias Mitzrayim happen? We have to get the Eibishter back involved. We have to, similar to what happened in the days of Purim, we have to wake God up from his sleep. And that was the main inyan of Yetzias Mitzrayim. So the Arizal says an interesting kavanah. The Arizal says when we say Avodim Ayinu Leparei Mitzrayim, and what's the next pasuk? Vayotzienu Hashem Elokeinu Misham B'yad Chazaka B'zroya Netuya. So the Arizal says, here's just an important idea. So the Arizal says like this: how did Yetzias Mitzrayim happen? So the Arizal says like this: Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem is Chachma, and Elokeinu is Bina. The two spheres, Chachma and Bina, which are the Pnimius. Right? Chachma and Bina is Pnimius. It's internalized energy. It's Yad Chazaka Zroya Netuya, two arms of God. So the Arizal says these are the two arms of Erech Anpin. The Chesed of Erech Anpin and the Gevura of Erech Anpin. When Chachma and Bina enclosed these two powers, when Havaya Elokeinu enclosed the two arms of Erech Anpin, that means that the Eibishter's vast, infinite desire was beginning to get what? Direction, purpose. Which means that the Eibishter's desire was focused. Through what? Through a plan, through intelligence, through what does he want? Then there's no reason for Klippas to receive anymore. Because they if you start making a reason why you created the world, you start figuring it out and coming to an appreciation of what your plan is, why would you give them anything? So then automatically we went out of Mitzrayim because they lost their power. So that Arizal says, it's through Chachma and Bina enclosing the arms of Erech Anpin that Erech Anpin was now enveloped in Chachma and Bina, which means it wasn't a free lunch anymore. In Mitzrayim, the Eibishter gives chinam for free. The Eibishter was channeling. He had a certain objective in creation and in the world, and which is Torah and mitzvahs, that he should be a king. And why did he create this all? That he should be a king. Who's going to make him a king? The Jewish people through Torah and mitzvahs. Then the flow flows to Kedusha and not to Klippa. So this is the idea that he's saying, and that's what Yosef began that process, to take the energy out from the Chitzonius and move it to the Pnimius. As he says, okay. They expanded the two arms of Erech Anpin, as is explained in the Kavanah, in the Arizal's Kavanas of Pesach. The explanation of the matter is, when he wakes up from being so spaced out in himself, and Shalbala Ratzon of the owner of the will, that he descends down Baratzon, he gets back into the project, he gets back into what he desires. Zroyos. So now in the Ratzon there is now Zroyos, there is arms. Dahainu chasada megvurais. There is the chesed, there is the gevura, yam and a smile. Al pi chachma bina, which are directed by the chachma and the bina. The same is also above. The Eibishter descends to enclose himself in Chachma Bina. Then the Ratzin starts becoming important till he can't stand that which is getting in the way, and that which is opposing him. And that's what means we went out of Mitzrayim. The Shefa is not going to the back of Erech Anpin. We took out the money. We took out the cash from Mitzrayim. We took out the entire flow from Egypt. It will not continue to go in the back of Erech Anpin. It will go towards the front. It will go to support good causes. Which is the Gili of the Eibishter's Ratzon. You see today as well, I'm sorry for being political, but you see today as well, the whole side of Klippa, which is the left in the United States, wants a flow where there's no discrimination, there's no walls, there's no giving, there's no border, there's no, everybody get, you want to come, you get this. This is such a tenuah from Klippa. Everything is, give, go. Where there is Kedusha, there has to be some kind of a design. There has to be what is appropriate, where should the energy go, who's deserving, and what. Show something that you're going to produce. Be a productive human being. You could be productive if we force you to be productive, and you can contribute to society. You can do something, not stam, give handouts and give endlessly. That's Mitzrayim. You see, it's the same thing. And the physical reflects the spiritual. It's such a klipa. But when you appreciate, okay, you know what, we want to give. Of course you give tzedakah. But there has to be accountability. There has to be, and then everything functions well. Everybody does much better. So there is a cheshbon. There is a calculation. This whole idea of nothing, everything is just free and open and this. If there wouldn't be Yetzias Mitzrayim, it means as long as the energy is flowing to the back, there would not be any Matan Torah. Because you need the energy to flow into Chachma. The Torah comes from Chachma. And if the energy is bypassing Chachma, it's just flowing on top of it. And since the arms of the Erech Anpin were not expanding, then the Eibishter was still drawn in himself. We turn over the page Kuf Dalet. He can't contract himself into Torah because he's not interested. He's pulled into himself. It's like a person below Hashina, a time of sleep, which is a departure of the Moichin. He's withdrawn from his Moichin into his Yechida, into his inner self, Mamish. And that's why Parai gets all the cash. But after we go out of the neck, out of the constriction and the back, now there is place for Matan Torah and for mitzvahs. Let's learn just till Sif Dalet, one tiny little passage more. Now, two things. When you direct the energy to the Pnimius, two things happen. Number one, you pull it out from the indiscriminate flow that flows everywhere. Secondly, once you're focused, not only isn't it not going there, but you get a far deeper flow. It's not only that the will that has been earlier is now focused, but it's the same will. Once there is purpose and there is meaning, even though on the one hand it's more constricted, it's more directed, and it has more rules and regulations, but the will is much more intense. Because ultimately the Baal Haratzin gets much more engaged. The willer of the will gets much more engaged, and he's emanating energy. Like we sometimes think that when there's no barriers and you let the energy flow, it's intense. But it's not that way. We know whenever there is borders and boundaries, it intensifies the energy. Not only, also from the source. Because when there is a purpose to it, it comes from a deeper place. And that's what he's explaining. Which was in the back. There was another effect of this Yitziyah, even when the Shefa will go to Chachma, even though it's coming through narrow passageways, from when it was in its expansive state, when it wasn't yet flowing through the mind, through the intellect, as we said earlier, but in Chachma, ta'ir ata, it will now illuminate, it's going to draw forth from the deeper desire of the Eibishter, from that which was earlier. Even though he was more into himself, he wasn't really deep enough in himself. Because the quintessence of the Eibishter's innermost and his deepest point, he wants a dira b'tachtainim. He does want to be connected. It's not like to say, the whole project of creation is like a chitzoniistic thing, and therefore when the Eibishter gets more absorbed in himself, it's worse for us, but it's really better for him because he can be busy with himself. It's not that way, because at the deepest point in himself, he really wants us. So to think that we're going to let him sleep, that's not good. He slept enough already, right? So he's much better off being awake and being involved and being down here. That's the idea. The innermost of the Eibishter is revealed dafka by Matan Torah. The Tam Hadvarim, and the reason is even though the intellect contracts the ratzon, because seichel by its very definition is already contracted kiyadua. But there's a much higher quality ratzon that goes into seichel. The revelation of the ratzon shu pnimius mohus kayach haratzon mamish. It pulls from the deepest essence of the ratzon and not from the chitzonius of the ratzon. It's only that it descends and it reveals itself in a very potent way. And the beginning and the end is wedged in the beginning. This is rooted in Atzmus, in the Eibishter, much higher, much higher, from when he is naturally just withdrawn into himself, when he doesn't want anything. You might say when a person is doesn't want anything, so he's kind of very much into himself because he doesn't want anything. No. We're saying that when he does want something, he's actually touching, it's in that desire lies a deeper essence than when he is just withdrawn from it, doesn't care. What are the mitzvahs? These are the gili of the ratzon of erech anpin. They come from the innermost of the gilgolas of the skull of erech anpin. It's connected to the 13 paths of white where there is no hair, which means very, very, very high. Even though it becomes contracted through Chachma and Bina, and from there it's drawn into the Torah that's in front of us. This pnimius dig ha'ara is much higher, much greater than the external of erech anpin. The Eibishter will shine elacha to you. It will shine with an addition of light from the essence of Adam Kadmon, when he descends and he contracts himself in Torah and mitzvahs. The nimtza comes out, the very siba of descending from his occupation with himself, Asa Beis Devarim accomplishes two things. Number one, it takes the energy away from the klipa, and it returns it pulls out from the unholy, the erech anpin, it takes away from the backside, kiniskaliel. The habeis, sheba ha'ara yoiser pnimius lepnimius. To the pnimius of erech anpin, it actually becomes intensified. The siba shneim Ba'am ke'echad, and both of them are connected to one point, k'niskaliyah. Because when there is purpose, and when there is direction, and there is what you want, it actually brings you out deeper of what you want from then the state that you think you don't care. Like we find, I'll show you an example to that. We all have certain things we work on. And we get very tired and we get very burnt out. Not just burnt out, after a while. And we all crave vacation. Everybody enjoys vacation. Get away. You think, if I'm only going to get away, and it's great, because when you have vacation, you get out of the stuff you're doing and stuff like that. And you're free and you can enjoy yourself and you can sit back and to realize after 2 days, it's even though you're enjoying it, but you feel like you're disconnecting from your inner point, because your inner point has to be involved and engaged. So even though on the one hand you're in a much greater state of espashtus, so 2, 3 days, 4 days, but there's something that's not satisfying. You'd rather be in the tzimtzum than be in this espashtus state. It's nice for a moment and you need it, and maybe you need it for a week, or maybe you need it for 10 days. But there's a certain lack, dafka in productivity and dafka in being engaged and involved. So when the Eibishter gets involved in his project, it's actually touching him and bringing out a deeper pneumius. And automatically when that happens, of course, he pulls out of the chitzonius. And that's Yosef's job, to bring God into that state. Or Yosef is that pneumius de gamshach. That's who he is. And that's the idea that I'm giving you a shchem echad alachecha. I'm giving you a job over your brothers. Just the first 5 lines in Perek Dalet, because this just concludes it. V'zeu v'ani nasati lecha shchem echad alachecha. Ki hashvatim, because the shvatim birurim mereish peches netzutzim, they are elevating the 288 sparks. Haya b'Shechem, they were in Shechem. Uvekasfuhu the erech anpin de bria. They're in the shoulders of erech anpin already, much further down the stream. In bria, keniskaliel. Shoyer shoresh mebchenes malchus tatzilus levad. Their shoresh was from malchus of atzilus alone. K'moy kein adruma ma'ilus ein biruram, and even on the highest levels, el b'chenas bandaak. Their beer is only in the ban aspect of Adam Kadmon. That's where the backside comes from. And he can't be mevarer himself. But the one that's higher than both, is able to do a bitter. And that's Yosef. The bitter to separate the bad from the ma'achash. Since the ra takes from the toiv, how can you do a bira through malchus? Shemachayas hakol. Malchus enlivens everybody. Ukamoy came bebandaak, the ban of Adam Kadmon, which is their source. Shupchina shema malchus canal, which is all about giving life. Umistaf memenu pchinas acharayim. That's where the acharayim comes from to begin with. Gam kein al derech pare berech anpen, like pare in the back. Ech yavaras atzmai. How can I do a bira? V'zeu shoyim ha'almim alumim b'toich hasada dechakal tapuchim. They were converting bad to good. At shoresh to their source, gam bezayim alachim the bandaak, even up. V'amna, but they only were able to get to a certain degree. V'amna birud de Yosef, the birud of Yosef, hayagava ma'oid naila mehem was much higher than that. Liyos ki agvoya ma'oid naila b'pchenas ha'atzmus. The one that's so high and so to speak from the level of atzmus, who ikar ha'mavar, he's the one who does the real bitter. B'shoresh ha'amiti, at the very, very true shoresh, ache betchila loitered hashefa. That from to begin with, the shefa should not go there. Lemisha ein aro. They are doing. There is already an ashpa of the Eibishter into the world. They're kind of picking with a toothpick, taking it out from the klipa, moving it into kedusha. Yosef is standing at the very, very beginning, and lechatchila not allowing the flow to go into that entire place. And then we won't have to use a toothpick to take out the sparks and to separate. It's the essence of Adam Kadmon. It's above a name. It's able to shine forth from Atzmus into the innermost of Erech Anpin. The shefa shouldn't go down to pare. And how much more so to separate that which he's already received. And also the second thing, as we said earlier, to add extra energy in erech anpin, they should all be able to be Torah mitzvahs kiniskelia. So from the level of Adar, Shuhu Yosef, which is Yosef, Yisoid the Adam Kadman, the Yisoid of Adam Kadman, who Ikara Arazu, that's where the main Ara comes, V'hainu M'shem Ma HaChadash B'mitzcha Da'ak, which is from the new name of Ma, which is in the forehead of Adam Kadman, Shememenu Ikara Aras Panim Be'erech Anpin, that's where the main Aras Panim Be'erech Anpin is, K'mosh Shekasim Makamacha V'day Lamevin, V'zeu Kama Ali Masi, that's why he tells them that my sheaf stands up, Sha'abir Shaloi, that his rectification, which is much higher than theirs. That's why their bundle should bow down to his bundle. It's like a second birr. I'm giving you one Shechem. From the back, should all be included in the true unity which comes from Atzmos. Next week, we're going to learn on how he actually chops them down with the double-edged sword, and the idea of the Sarah Mashkim, Sarah Oifim, Sarah Tabachim, and all that cool stuff. Be'ez Hashem, we will finish this. If anybody understood what I said in the last 20 minutes, please tell me. You realized I just cut through over there a bunch of stuff that I had no idea what I'm saying, but that's good. Because he says a lot of things over there that are really pretty cryptic, but I made believe that I know what he's saying. Okay.